to my father in 1946 from grateful patients.
Wow.
And started very modestly, and now we have 180 employees just doing research and education. We have a $22 million annual budget.
And all of this research across the country is really kind of connected. You were mentioning to me that you have actually discovered the gene that's causing hearing loss in seniors?
That's right. One of my associates, Dr. Friedman, has put together a consortium which actually includes European scientists and our scientists and some companies that are in gene identification, and we've able to now comb down on the gene or genes that are responsible for age-related hearing loss.
All right, so here's one of your research assistants here, and this staff, they must come to work with a certain passion because you're in the miracle business.
Well, it's fantastic. And research, of course, it does not have the rewards that, for instance, a surgeon has, where I can go in and repair a broken part, so to speak.
Yes.
A researcher works months and years on projects and fortunately sees at the end of that tunnel something that's now applied to a patient. And that's what we try to do at the House Ear Institute and the House Clinic.
Now, you told me something that honestly alarmed me, that there is a rather commonly used drug, Vicodin, which has now been implicated in hearing loss?
Yeah, we first discovered this actually several years ago. We began to see patients who were abusing a Vicodin or the same components, which is acetaminophen and hydrocodone. And many people would start to take it as a painkiller for a back problem or whatever, and then begin to increase their dose.
Yes, well, that's the road.
Right, or people were taking it for the thrill of it, because it was sort of a party drug in Hollywood. And we're talking about people who are taking anywhere from 20 to 100 per day. I'm talking about a major dose. I'm not talking about the person that takes it as their doctor recommends.
Prescribed the dose.
And these people then will develop a rapidly progressive total hearing loss. They lose all of their hearing. Fortunately, those patients are very good candidates for the cochlear implant.
Is that because of their relative youth?
Yeah, well, no, not necessarily. Age is not a factor. It's the relative short duration of their hearing loss, because we're able to identify it right away and then immediately put the cochlear implant in.
So the duration of your hearing loss plays a role in the possible rehabilitation?
With the success of the cochlear implant, people who have been deaf for many years do not make as good a candidate as someone who just recently lost their hearing.
Well, I know one of the men who represents me in Washington, D.C., Mark Rue, has been blind since birth, and he tells me over and over that he would rather be blind than be deaf, that it has such an impact on life.
Well, Helen Keller said the same thing.
Well, there we are.
And the reason for that is that you and I are sitting here communicating. I can close my eyes and we can continue to communicate. I can be blind, so to speak. On the other hand, if you were deaf and and then you cannot, you have no idea. And also, hearing is 360 degrees. It's all around us. It's our entire environment. Whereas we see what we see, we don't see what happens behind us. So,
well, even the airlines figured that out. You can watch the movie, but you got to pay to get the sound.
Yeah, there you go. The sound is very important, and that's one of the frustrations that people have, of course, when they begin to lose their hearing, is they begin to lose contact with the world.
But hearing is not just specific to one thing. It really touches many aspects of our life. You were mentioning to me balance. This little area here.
It's this part of the ear here is responsible in part for our balance, and this is how we maintain our balance, is by having the fluid within the inner ear react to movements, transmit that information along the balance nerve to the brain, where the brain then is able to make adjustments. So the ear is a very important structure.
Right. When, of course, with seniors, falling is almost always a calamity, because it's the broken hip that leads to institutionalization and et cetera, et cetera.
And that's one of the major things that we see in our clinic, actually, is that about a third of the patients coming to the house clinic have issues with either vertigo, spinning vertigo, balance issues, or dizziness.
Right. Now, help is available, and you brought some of the hearing aids that are in use today. And could you take a minute to show them to us? Because I grew up with Grandpa Burr, who had this enormous thing on his ear and a pack that was hung on a rope around his neck.
Well, the first hearing aids were massive, partly because of the battery technology,
Yes.
and then also the electronics. The first electronic hearing aids were invented in about 1900. Since then, of course, they've made tremendous strides. I think most people would recognize this as being a type of hearing aid that goes behind the ear with the tubing going into the ear and the earpiece in the ear. And this is a very good hearing aid for someone with more of a severe loss. And then we also then have the smaller hearing aids that go strictly into the ear. And then these even get smaller to the point where actually I don't have one here, but this hearing aid, for example, goes in the ear also. And then we have some that go deep in the ear, which some people like because they don't really show cosmetically, but they have limitations. More recently, and this is what I'm excited about, because this is a hearing aid that has really come along in the last year or two, and what it is called open fit, because the part that goes into the ear doesn't block the ear. So it allows the normal lower pitch sounds to go through normally, and the high frequency sound then goes down this very, very narrow tube. And you can see how small these are. In fact, they're even coming out smaller than that. You can compare it to the other one you see, and there really is quite a difference now.
Yeah, it's remarkable. My mother, who is 85, has hearing aids for both ears. And you know, as age takes away function, she loses the darn things, you know, or waits for me to show up to change the batteries, which are, it can be a tedious project.
Well, we also see it where the hearing aid, the dog gets the hearing aid too.
Oh, that as well. It's time for a short break. When we come back, we will continue our discussion with Dr. John House about hearing treatment for senior citizens. We'll be right back. You stay tuned.
I have cash for 7 to 9 days. I also have a copy of my passport, birth certificate, and insurance papers.
Hi, it's me. I have water and food.
Don't forget, we'll need a first aid kit and my prescription medicine.
Got your message. I have clothes and a flashlight pack. I'll bring batteries and some tools, too. We'll bring the radio.
A disaster can happen anytime. Are you prepared? At your next family gathering, build your emergency kit. Find the 10 essential items and more at labt.org. Just be ready. Prepare together.
Before approaching an intersection. So that's why 2 wrong turns don't make a right turn. Now let's learn about tailgating.
Hey, that's how I got my ticket.
You got a ticket for tailgating? That's not good. That can be really annoying.
Doesn't get you there any faster.
It leaves you no distance to brake.
Which makes it easier to get into a crash.
And it also may increase your insurance premium. And I hate tailgaters. Tailgating causes crashes. Back off. Watch the road.
Welcome back to Aging in LA. The title of our program today is Have You Heard? And our special guest, and I mean really special, is Dr. John House, president of the world-renowned House Ear Clinic. Thank you again, doctor, for joining us. Now, I want to brag on you a little bit. President Reagan was your patient, correct?
Yes, he was. I saw him during his first term. He came to see me because he was having, obviously, some problems. But it's interesting, you know, by the way, his hearing loss in one ear was due to an fellow actor firing a gun close to his ear in the 1940s.
Yeah.
And that's what knocked down his hearing in his left ear. And so when I was seeing him, discussing the problems with him, I said, Mr. President, I think you need a hearing aid. Now, mind you, he's up for re-election. Age is an issue.
Of course.
And, you know, many people say, well, I'm just, don't want to look old, so I don't want to wear a hearing aid. The President said, do you think it'll help, doctor? And I said, yes, I do. And he said, fine, let's do it. And, it took 2 weeks for the press to find it. When they did, hearing aid sales went up 75%.
Well, the value of a person who does not have that kind of strangely placed ego.
Yeah.
Here's the genuine article, a great hero of mine. But then, did Nancy say, Ronnie, I can't hear you, or you're not listening anymore?
Actually, she did not. But and she was very delightful. She is a very delightful person.
Yes.
And she was very gracious. And she did appreciate the hearing aids because it really did help. I mean, it helped him both in his meetings and it helped him at home and in social situations.
Well, I want the president to be able to hear his advisors, that's for sure. Now, one of the things that is so encouraging in talking to you is that you're involved in actually helping people, taking whether it's corrective surgery or this incredible device, this cochlear implant. And I'm not sure I understand what that does.
And I think it's important that people do understand when we talk about the cochlear implant, first of all, it's a device.
Well, we have some footage of you here working on it.
Yeah, this is an example of doing this type of surgery where we actually will go into the ear and we will place tiny electrodes into the inner ear, into the cochlea. And what those electrodes do is they stimulate the nerve electrically. And these are patients who have lost those little hair cells, so they're no longer able to convert vibration to an electrical impulse. So the cochlear implant takes over that.
I see.
And it was developed at the House Ear Institute by my uncle, William House. He started in about the 1960s, and it has progressed from a very primitive device to an extremely sophisticated device that is restoring hearing to the deaf, not only the aging, but to infants.
You know, I would have loved to have been around your house with all the houses at dinner time. Was this the table talk? Was this the research and things that I've witnessed today?
I think the excitement of coming home and finding out that a patient has received the cochlear implant and they're now hearing was something that was very inspirational, of course, to me as a young person and as a person who wanted to do something similar.
Well, we have someone special we'd like everyone to meet. Henry McIntyre is 78 years old and still works, as an auditor at the Los Angeles Department of Aging. He experienced hearing loss as a young teen and shares his experiences and treatment with us.
My experience with the hearing loss goes back to when I was living in New York City, in the Bronx. And I was 13 at the time. And that was in 1943, just before Christmas. And I became very sick. And what happened, I was able to get home somehow. I sort of staggered home, and the doctor, Dr. Gordon, came. They did house calls at that time. So he came and examined me and said, it was apparently meningitis, streptococcus meningitis. So they called an ambulance, and I was taken to Willard Parker Hospital in New York City for contagious diseases. And it was pretty serious then what I came down with, and they gave me the last rites. But I survived the meningitis, and in the hospital they determined that I did have a hearing loss. And it turned out to be a hearing loss in both ears. Up to that time, I had normal hearing. On my own, I went to the school for the deaf. I knew where it was, and I went there and told them I wanted to be admitted. And they said, well, we'll let you talk to one of our teachers. So they did. Her name was Helen Herrick, and she was very understanding, and she said, Henry, you don't need to go here to the deaf school. She said, what you apparently need is a hearing aid. So from there, we were told, my family was told about this New York League for the Hard of Hearing. And so I went there. It was a nonprofit organization, and they gave me the chance to test different hearing aids without having to go to different hearing aid dealers. So I chose one, and then I went to the particular dealer, and then I was fitted with a hearing aid for the first time. And I do remember when I was home with the hearing aid for the first time, and mother opened a paper bag. It seemed so loud. Ooh, I had to get used to that. But the New York League for the Hard of Hearing was not finished with me. They pointed out they had speech reading classes, and they had practice of speech classes, and also they felt I should go for what was called then oral rehabilitation. So I went to this Mary Wood Whitehurst that conducted the oral rehabilitation, and what she taught me was to utilize what I would see on the person's face. She included the lip reading, and combine that with what I heard. So we went through different lessons that way, and that was very helpful. And since then, that's what I do. I read lips as well as utilize whatever the hearing instrument that I have, what they give me. So the combination is very helpful that way. It's hard for people to realize at times that I may have the so-called profound hearing loss. Before I obtained the next instrument later on, I was at a rock concert. Remember, I took the hearing aid out. I was curious to see how much I would hear. It was so loud, I heard absolutely nothing. And I told one fellow that was there at the concert, and he said I was lucky. He said he wished he could turn off all that noise just by flipping a switch, see, like I could. So it's how you look at things. In 1957, after a whirlwind courtship, I got married, and my wife and I, we moved to California. And I wound up working at UCLA. And I remember my hearing, and there was a problem with my hearing. It sort of, what little was there, sort of was nosediving, going down worse. So I found out there was this house ear clinic in Los Angeles by 3rd and Alvarado across from St. Vincent's Hospital. So I started going there, and that was in the early 60s. And Dr. William House performed surgery because fluid was building up in this ear. And so he operated and removed all that excess fluid. And so he saved what little hearing there was in this ear.
Henry recently had cochlear implant that can help most severely and profoundly deaf people to hear. He talks about the results.
One of my assistant listening devices was my wife. And so I'd say, what is this I'm hearing? See, at the house. And she says, well, that's the kettle. So then I started learning what that was. And I had been feeding birds in the backyard for a good while, and I never heard them. So here I suddenly was hearing the different birds, and after a while I was able to understand the different birds and their sound. Then I also started hearing these insects, the crickets. We had crickets around the place for years, I guess, and I hadn't heard the crickets. And when I'd ask my wife, I said, what's the sound? She had to listen. She was so used to, I guess, the crickets, see? And she said, oh, that's the crickets you're hearing.
You know, Dr. House, that's a quality of life issue. That's what that story is.
It's something we see every day, too, which is so gratifying.
No, it has to be. Now, how do people contact the House Institute, or what do they do to find you and hearing help?
Well, I want to emphasize that anyone who thinks they have a hearing loss should be checked by a hearing specialist. At the House Ear Clinic, of course, we do see patients. The phone number is area code 213-483-9930. That's the clinic.
Right.
Now, the Institute is a not-for-profit research organization, so if they have any questions regarding our research or possibly even supporting the Institute, that's the number to call, would be the Institute itself, which is a different number, 213-483-4431.
Well, and the support of the Institute is, I mean, $22 million annual budget is significant.
Yes.
And it's amazing what we can spend money on, and important things go a-begging. I can't let this show end without me saying to you how proud we are that you came and joined us to help explain to people that help is available and that hearing loss does not have to impact your life.
Well, Paul, thank you for having me.
Well, we're out of time for this edition of Aging in L.A. Oh, thanks so much to our guest, Dr. John House of the House Ear Clinic. And, of course, our thanks to Henry McIntyre for sharing his stories with us. And now it's time for Senior Stat Shots. Today we have some information for you on how to communicate with a senior who has a hearing loss. It is important not to assume that he can hear and understand what you are saying if he is wearing a hearing aid. Begin the conversation by getting the senior's attention. Converse in a quiet environment with few visual and auditory distractions. Communicate in a well-lit area and avoid standing in front of bright lights or windows. Make sure your face and mouth are clearly visible. Do not eat, smoke, chew gum, or cover your mouth. Enunciate your words clearly, avoiding exaggerated lip movements or shouting. Maintain eye contact. If you have to turn away from the senior, wait until you reestablish eye contact before continuing your conversation. Use facial expressions and gestures to help clarify your message. Pointing to appropriate objects or using visual aids can also be very helpful. And that's today's Senior Stat Shot. I'm Paul Peterson for the Los Angeles Department of Aging, the people here at City View Channel 35, and all of our guests on Aging in LA. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Good morning, Los Angeles, and welcome to the City Council meeting for Friday, October 15th, 2010. We're here in the John Fryle Council Chambers, room 340 of City Hall, where we meet every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. I want to thank those members who are here on time, Council Members Huizar and Labange, Rosendahl. We are awaiting a quorum, and we have excuses on the desks from Council Members Cardenas, Parks, Perry, and Smith, who are not expected today. So if Council Members Alarcon and Hahn, Koretz, Krikorian, Reyes, Wesson and Zine will please join us as soon as possible. In the meantime, I want to thank those members of the public and our city family that are here this morning with us. Like all Fridays, we will begin today with some special presentations to mark notable dates, accomplishments, individuals, and organizations that are making a difference here in our city. But before that, just to go through a little bit of housekeeping. We are broadcast live on Channel 35 through the city's cable system and rebroadcast each day of our meetings in the evening time. We're also available 4 other ways for your convenience. We can track council meetings, as I mentioned, live in person here in council chambers, but also through our 2 remote facilities, one in San Pedro City Hall and one in Van Nuys City Hall. If that's closer to where you live, please avail yourself of that. And we can also accept public testimony remotely from those locations as well. We also are available through the city's homepage, through the internet at our homepage, lacity.org, and there are links there for live streaming webcasts of our council meetings, and we archive all of our past council meetings there for your convenience as well. There are links online, furthermore, to our city council meeting agendas. Those are made available 72 hours in advance per the state's Brown Act, and 24 hours in advance for our special meetings. All items that are on the agenda are split into items that have had public hearings and those that have not yet had public hearings. If you wish to be heard for either, please fill out a speaker card in the back and hand it to the sergeants at arms or in Van Nuys and San Pedro. If we've already had a public hearing, it requires a council member to reopen that to hear further public comment. But any item that has not yet had a public hearing is automatically triggered by a card from the public. We also have a section of the meeting called General Public Comment. That's for items that are not on the agenda, but nevertheless under our jurisdiction, and that's 2 minutes per speaker, and we have a clock to help you guide your time up there. We're also available through your telephone, and it's a service called Council Phone. The number is 213-621-CITY. That's 213-621-CITY. Or if you live in the San Fernando Valley, we have a number 818-904-9450. On the west side, it's 310-471-CITY. And in San Pedro, it's 310-547-CITY. You can listen into any of the council meetings and also any of our committee meetings as well. Again, I want to thank those council members who are here. Council members Zine, Rosendahl, Labange, and Weezar. We are still awaiting a quorum, but we will begin shortly with our presentations. We have 5 presentations today. Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We have Adopt a Pet, Child Safety, a review of this past Sunday's Ciclavia, which was a very successful event throughout the city of Los Angeles. And then Council District 10 has a presentation with our Recreation and Parks Department. So thank you for your patience while we wait those council members, and we will begin very shortly. Thank you.
Good morning. We are still awaiting a quorum. We'll start with our presentations. And our first presentation will be Council District 13, our Council President, Eric Garcetti. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I want to thank Carol Tantow, who's up here as well, who's the Task Force, City's Domestic Violence Task Force Chair. We're also here with Deputy City Attorney Bill Carter, and also, Chief Deputy, and also our Deputy Chief David Doan from LAPD. I'm very proud to be our council's liaison to the Domestic Violence Task Force, and thank you to the council members for each of your great appointees that is on the Domestic Violence Task Force as well. This month, October, as we do each year, we have these purple ribbons that we put on, and we raise awareness about domestic violence in Los Angeles and beyond. And each year we have a different theme to highlight a different angle of violence that still plagues our communities and that still affects so many of our constituents as well. And we also honor the amazing men and women of the Los Angeles Police Department for the work that they have done to save lives, to intervene in incidents of domestic violence, and to give them the recognition of the incredible work that they have done as well. And we also have, from the City Attorney's Office, Deputy City Attorney Eve Sheedy, who has been awarded this, or will be awarded right here, an award named after somebody that was no stranger to these council chambers, Dr. Marjorie Browdy. The Dr. Marjorie Browdy Award is given to somebody who makes an incredible, sustaining, and impactful difference for this city around the issue of domestic violence. And Eve Sheedy, one of our own deputy city attorneys, has made an incredible video, and it highlights this year's theme, which is the connection between gang violence and domestic violence. That intertwining of violence that we see so often in our streets through the gang life and gang culture that spills over into family violence and domestic violence as well. So first I want to congratulate Eve for being named the City of Los Angeles Domestic Violence Task Force's Dr. Marjorie Browdy Award winner. She would deserve highest accolades just for her work to convict abusers, but as I mentioned, she went above and beyond to look at the root cause of the violence. And are we going to play a little clip? Okay, so do we have the clip all queued up? So I'd like to turn our attention to this incredible film, Violence Connected, for a little preview.
I believe that there is an overlap between domestic violence and gang violence. society tries to deal with the issue is to isolate gang violence and domestic violence like they're separate, but they're not.
I learned to regain power, and I did that journey again. I empowered myself in ways that had my dad thinking twice about hitting me. And what was more important to me was that he stopped hitting my mother.
Thank you very much. Let's give her a round of applause for the work that she has done. I'd like to turn the microphone over to Carol Tantau to say a couple words as well. Maybe we can hear a little something from Eve. We're going to be honoring her with the award, and also each of these officers will be getting a certificate to thank them as well for the work that they've done. But please welcome the chair of our Domestic Violence Task Force, Carol Tantau.
The Task Force's Committee on Gang Violence Nexus is headed by Eve Sheedy, and today we are recognizing her as the recipient of the Dr. Marjorie Browdy Award for innovative collaborative efforts on behalf of domestic violence victims in the city of Los Angeles. In particular, I would like to call attention to her committee's efforts to connect the city's GRID project managers with domestic violence service providers in their areas. So without further ado, Debbie Biederman and I will be presenting this award to Eve Sheedy.
Eve, come on up.
My glasses down.
We'll do more pictures now.
Okay.
You want to say Eve a couple things? Sure.
Oh, go? Okay. I'm grateful and humbled by this award. Dr. Browdy was truly a brave pioneer in the domestic violence field. I'm also honored and glad that this year's theme of our annual Domestic Violence Awareness Day event is the overlap of domestic violence and gang violence. I got involved in this issue because I'd heard many people say that children often join gangs because they're looking for a family. My conversations with former gang members and those who work in the gang intervention field confirmed that many people who are looking for a family were doing so to escape the violence in their own homes. However, we know that joining a gang does not make someone less violent. It generally makes them more violent. But what we forget or even ignore is that gang members go home. And whether they go home after a violent incident was interrupted or after a violent incident occurred, they go home to their wives, their girlfriends, and their children without the tools or the knowledge of how to solve problems without violence. So the violence goes home with them, and the cycle goes on. I hope that our continued focus on the overlap of domestic violence and gang violence helps us to see that the cycle of violence does not just exist in individual relationships, it exists in our communities. LAPD received 44,000 domestic violence calls last year. That is over 120 calls a day, every day. The violence that is occurring in our homes is making our streets dangerous as well. We now have to acknowledge that these two things are connected, that we have to look at both in order to effectively address either one. In closing, I want to say that this, and this is probably the most important thing, I want to say that this award is not really for me or about me. It's for the wonderful, brave, courageous women and men who have overcome violence in their lives. I only hope that my work can do them justice. Thank you very much.
And I dare say, Eve, that it has. And I know it's a cliche in Los Angeles that what everybody really wants to do is direct. Well, you've done it, and you've done it with a difference. So thank you for that. I'd like to ask our Chief Deputy City Attorney, Bill Carter, to come forward to say a couple words, and then we'll hear from our Deputy Chief, Dave Doan.
Good morning. We want to come here and recognize the great work of Eve Sheedy and the overlap between gang violence and domestic violence, because we don't want the victims and the witnesses of gang violence or or domestic violence to become gang members in the future, and we don't want those gang members in the future to become batterers at home. We need to protect our community and our home. And we really appreciate the outstanding work that Eve does for us in our office. And we also want to recognize the outstanding work of the LAPD. They do a tremendous job. We could not do it without them and their support. And we really want to thank all of you in the service communities and the public as well. I want to present on behalf of the City Attorney's Office a certificate of recognition for Eve. And if you haven't seen her film, you should, or go to the website and see the film. It's a very powerful statement. In recognition of your outstanding leadership, service, and invaluable contributions to the field of domestic violence, we appreciate your innovative endeavors demonstrating the overlap between domestic violence and gang violence, and your extraordinary achievement in creating the Domestic Violence Gang Nexus Committee of the Los Angeles Domestic Violence Task Force. Your tireless efforts to curb the abuse of women and children have been a great benefit to the citizens of Los Angeles and are to be commended. We present this to you, Eve Sheedy, the recipient of the Dr. Marjorie Browdy Award. Thank you, Eve. Really appreciate
Hot off the press. You should be able to watch it.
Right. How would you know?
And as was mentioned, 44,000 calls in each of our districts, and those are only the calls that reach LAPD. We know for every call that there are many that never result in a radio call. But Chief David Doan is here representing the incredible men and women that we see to my left who have just done an extraordinary job. We'd like to know who they are. They work in each one of our council districts, and we honor them today. Chief Doan.
Thank you, Eric. Council members, I'm pleased to be here on behalf of Chief of Police Charlie Beck, and we as the Los Angeles Police Department also want to give our congratulations to Eve Sheedy for her hard work, not only on this film, but also on her advocacy and her efforts in the City Attorney's Office on behalf of domestic violence victims. I am also pleased to present to you today the men and women of the Los Angeles Police Department who are our frontline troops who deal with domestic violence, who are the department's advocates, if you will, for our victims, the detectives who work with the many, many victims in the city of Los Angeles and do an outstanding job. Unfortunately, you can't recognize everyone for their outstanding efforts, but we have a few here today that we want to recognize who are being recognized for their outstanding efforts, and they're joined by their partners who do an outstanding job as well. So I'm going to ask those who are designated award winners, if you'll please stand as I go through or please stand, and I'm going to also list the names.
All right, so we know who they are.
All right, so Kevin, you'll start off if you'll wave so that the council members can know who we're talking about, but I first have Detective Becker from Hollywood. There's Kevin. Detective Cho from Olympic. Detective De Rosario from Wilshire. I know I'm going to get in trouble for not pronouncing these correctly. There she is. Detective Cerna from Pacific. There she is. Detective Monterrez from Van Nuys. Detective Hamilton from Foothill. There she is. Detective Higgs from Newton. Detective Tarnakoff from Northeast. Detective Lorenzo from 77th. And if the rest of the members of LAPD will stand up, because I have some DART officers, I have supervisors and others who work in the area of domestic violence, if you could just recognize them for their outstanding efforts on behalf of the citizens of the city of LA. Thank you.
We'll be honoring them and making sure that they each have individual certificates. Thank you all, council members, for your support of them.
We have Mr. Garcetti, Mr. Rosendahl, please. Mr. Rosendahl.
Just a couple of quick comments. First of all, I have my thing, and I've had it in my drawer, and I will always keep it here as long as I'm in the council. We're getting into the holiday season again, and we know Thanksgiving and the holidays brings the families together. We also know that domestic violence also happens rather significantly when families get together. We also know that alcohol plays a huge role in bringing out the worst in people and making people the way they tend to become. But I want to say also that Carol Tanto, who is in my district in Venice, has been a true leader and a fighter for what's right for people. Thank you, Carol, for everything you've done for all of us. I also want to make it very clear that young kids, and I happen to be an openly gay guy, get bullied at the home. They get bullied at the home, they get bullied by their peers, they find problems that happen. And in some cultures, it even reaches the extreme point where a young gay person is literally killed by the family members, and that is domestic violence too. So everybody is impacted by domestic violence. I want to thank the officers who do the work out there and do it every day and do it with great class and seriousness. Thank you very much for what you all do. The positive side about the holiday season are the folks right here. Your leadership and what you've done is so important and must be continued. So I just want to thank everybody and Mr. President for bringing it to us again today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Ms. Hahn?
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone for the work that you do in domestic violence cases here in Los Angeles. And Eve, thank you for your work, and I think it really is going to make a difference. We try so hard in the city to try to figure out why kids are joining gangs. I mean, that's really, we're never going to end gang violence in Los Angeles unless we figure out why they're joining gangs and then prevent them from joining gangs in the first place. So I appreciate your work on that. And to all the men and women in law enforcement who deal with domestic violence, we also know that domestic violence calls are dangerous for police officers. We know that many times they escalate, and the police officer is involved in the violence once they get there. But, you know, this is particularly a crime that's committed against women. I know there are instances where men are victims of domestic violence, but usually it's women. And 30% of women are killed in the United States, die at the hands of a husband or a boyfriend. And one study revealed that half of the homicides female spouses happen after they have tried to get away from their batterer. And while we're trying to give women courage in trying to get away from a domestic violence situation, this statistic is very chilling. So what we hope also happens is that there are safe places for women to go to. There is an environment where they can escape domestic violence and be safe. So appreciate all of your really hard work. It would be great one year to not have this month be Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It would be nice if we could get rid of that in our society altogether. So thank you for what you're doing.
Mr. LaBonge.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garcetti. As always, thank you for your leadership. Mr. Carter, Mr. Tatich, our city attorney, very focused on this. And for all of those of you on the task force, thank the late, great Marvin Brady and Marjorie Brady to bring this forward, to think that this is not institutionalized. Where would we be? This morning I was among many places, but in Northeast Station, dealing with an issue in the area in which I lived, working with a detective. And he has a radio on his desk. Any Southwest unit, go to, and the address in Southwest. And attention, a 3-year-old is in the scene of a domestic violence case. What a rocket of an earthquake, just like out of nowhere, boom, these situations happen. And you, as officers, and your team of officers in your variety of divisions, and the leadership of your captains and other managers at your area, focus on this issue. I think, Janice, when you said you'd never find a way, every day in the work that you have done, and the statement that Mr. Rosendahl said, all of us, to isolate the problem in working with sociology, psychology, other sciences, hopefully find a way. Because there's nothing worse than when someone is harmed by another person. And the violence of domestic violence, and what Mr. Rosendahl said, especially of gay people, of people, a variety of lifestyles, the harm that takes place there, of families that are shattered, and you mentioned the tragedies of gang violence. So I just wanted to thank you, and I wanted to thank you. I just put purple on today because I like this shirt. I lucked out today. And can we be so lucky that domestic violence would end just because the day sun shines? We could work on it. Thank you, everybody there. Congratulations. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And for anybody who's out there listening right now, there is help. There is a Los Angeles Police Department, a city attorney, and a district attorney who will help. And I just want to leave us with a number, which is right here. Hold on one second. If you need help, 1-800-799-SAFE. 1-800-799-SAFE. We're here to help you get out of that situation today. Thank you all very much, and let's each do our part this month to make sure the word gets out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Our next presentation from Council District 10, Mr. Wesson has two presentations. Mr. Wesson.
Oh, good job. Upstairs?
Yeah, good coffee. I got
Mr. Wesson, you are up, sir.
Good. Hey, everybody. There they are.
Mr. President, members, thank you for affording me this opportunity to speak to you on one of my favorite Fridays. And it's my favorite Friday, get closer, ladies, because it is Pet Adoption Friday. And we in the city of Los Angeles have a 100% adoption rate whenever I bring dogs or puppies to the council. So it is important, because of my competitive nature, that somebody who is watching this on television or listening to this on council phone come down to the council chambers and adopt a fine companion animal. Now, I have with me today, and these are not the dogs, I have my wife Fabian and Victoria, right? And Victoria is holding Velvet. Velvet is 3 years old, and Velvet is the mother of Teddy. Teddy is just so scared, he's shaking. He's 2.5 months old. Now, Victoria, could you kind of hold Velvet up? This is as big as it's going to get. So these are nice little lap-type dogs. And I say this all the time. If you want unconditional love, if you want somebody that's going to love you when you forget to put water in their bowl, or when you feed them late and they will still love you, I tell you, you adopt one of these animals and you'll know exactly what I mean. Now, what would be great is if we could find someone that would adopt mom and son. We get up here, Mr. Koretz and I, Mr. Koretz does the cats, I do the dogs because I'm a dog person. You're saving these animals' life. We do everything that we can not to put them to sleep. But by adopting these dogs, that means they're going to be alive and off the street. So I'm asking you, wherever you are, to please come save 2 lives. Now, if those of you are at home and you'd like to come, you'd like to adopt one of these dogs, please call 452-7381. But I have a feeling that somebody somewhere in this building who's lonely is going to come and adopt 2 children. So we will keep these 2 animals in the back for a while in hopes that someone will come down. And remember, like I said, we have a 100% adoption rate. We are in direct competition with the County of Los Angeles. We cannot let the county beat us. They have a 100% adoption rate, and they do their dogs, I think, weekly. So we only do it twice a month. So please, come on down and get a sweet addition to the family. My wife has already indicated that she's just holding this dog, so this dog will not be coming home with me because I already have the legal limit. Yes, dear. All right, so with that said, please, if you have an interest, we're going to have Victoria in the back and come down and adopt Teddy or Velvet. Thank you. And they're ready to go, right? They've got their shots, they're microchipped, and they're ready to go. So with that said, Mr. President, they kind of look like you.
Yeah, they do.
I could really see, the sensitive, warm individual that you are.
Thank you. They would look good on my motorcycle.
In fact, you know what, Zion? If you get them, no, you said they'll look good on your mantle. No, I think I have to give them to Mr. Reyes there. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Reyes, we could split those dogs, one for you and one for me.
We'll take them right over to Mr. Reyes' seat. I'll pay for it, Ed. Don't worry about it. Anyway, please, city workers, visitors to City Hall, come forward. Now, it's going to take a while for all of these people to line up behind me. But if I could ask the Rec and Park staff to begin lining up behind me. My mother and my father taught me a lot of things, but one of the most important things they ever taught me was to appreciate people. And I must admit that I do appreciate the people that are lining up behind me, but I kind of neglected them. This is something that I should have done a long time ago. Now, I don't know if Mr. Muckery is still here, but if he is, I'd like for him to come as well. I'm going to ask my wife to come and stand by me as well. Miss Trudy, I do not want you to leave. This is one of the most creative departments that we have in the city of Los Angeles. They never cease to amaze me in the things that they are able to do. I can't think of one time that I've come to this department and had an idea or a suggestion where it was rejected. I appreciate you very much, and I just want each and every one of you to know that. In fact, you are so good, Muckery, your department, that you could be honored on a weekly basis. That's how good I believe the department to be. I had this crazy dream that maybe I could take about 100+ kids on a camping trip on a yearly basis. And so I figured in order to do it, I would do it myself. My staff would be the counselors and a few volunteers. And that we were going to take kids who were from challenged areas, and we had various gang intervention groups recommend kids to go on these camps. And some of the kids are little brothers and sisters to individuals that are actually in gangs. And so I figured, I'm great with kids. I coached Pop Warner football for 13 years. This is going to be a snap, a slam dunk. Trust me, it was more than a notion. So I went to Rec and Parks and I said, help! Please help me, because the kids enjoy it, but something was missing at my camps. The kids had fun, but the kids were too cool. And I think camp should be silly, and camp should be funny, and camp should have little stupid games or what have you. And when I partnered with Rec and Parks, and basically what we do every year is we rent one of their parks. At the end of their session, their counselors stay over. Their counselors stay over an extra week so that they can help us out. And so we've been to Griffith Park Boys Camp, and we've been to Hollywoodland, which is the girls' camp.
In LeBron's district, don't invite him.
I know it's in, for those of you that saw my wife, she had to tell me it's in Tom LeBon's district. I know it's in Tom LeBon's district, and maybe I should invite him up. Yes, wife, you're right. LeBon's, please come on up.
Mr. LeBon's is never shy with a camera.
Mr. LeBon's did visit me one morning at one of the camps on a Sunday. No, what was it? Saturday morning or Sunday morning, and brought a coyote with him. So, but I knew this camp was going to be great. Because when you go there, whatever your name is, that stays in your car. You have a camp name. And when I heard all of these cute camp names, I knew that I was with the right crowd. So I just want to acknowledge, I'm not going to even say her real name, Wave, as in an ocean wave, Guru, Tigger, Cricket, and where Cricket, raise your hand. I named my last dog after Cricket. Okay? And I told Cricket that. My little dog, Cricket. Broken Arrow, Poppy. Oh, and I forgot Poppy, and then the two chefs. We got Manuel and Jose, and I'm telling you, the food is great. Our kids are fed 3 times a day with 2 snacks, and all they can eat. It's a wonderful experience. Okay, I think I have rain, ox, barley, koala, flower, pike, zephyr, toro, native, who I just met this year. And also, we had a doctor, a professor that they brought in from Pasadena Community College, who's also with JPL, and he had the kids from my neighborhood, who many of which have not been to the beach, have never slept under the stars. He brought out a telescope, and they were able to see Mars. Mars as 3 big bucks with the antlers or the horns rode past as we hiked in the caves where they filmed the movie Batman. They treated my children like the kings and queens that they are. So I recommend, if any of you wants to try this experience, it is relatively affordable, and I have the greatest bunch of camp counselors and administrators behind me. Now, in order to be part of the crowd, I had to change my name. The first name I came up with, they felt was a little controversial, so I changed that. And as soon as I step on the campgrounds, I'm Chief. And I love it when all of the kids come and the other counselors, hi, Chief. My wife, to my right, is Pine Cone. Okay? Trudy, stand up, Trudy. Come a little closer. This is Sunflower. And Kamani, who I know is hiding because he never likes to be on camera, his name is Coyote. And we have other members. And my staff still goes, and they stay for 3 days. It's not like we go, do a photo op, and then we leave and come back and greet them when they come home. But I just wanted to put faces in front of you of, in my opinion, 2 of the greatest groups of people on the planet are golfers and camp counselors. They care about others. They go above and beyond the call of duty. A lot of these counselors have been with me when we set up Camp Wesson for 2 days, and I felt that the least that I could do was to bring them in to this beautiful chamber and acknowledge them for the phenomenal work that they do year in and year out. And Mr. LeBon's, I've got you with me, and we had a casual discussion about it. Where's Broken Arrow? Broken. Come on, Broken. You're in my house, Broken, now. I'm in charge, not you. Broken is the archery instructor. And Kamani, you come here as well. Okay, are you in? Broken Arrow was a counselor when Kamani was 10 years old. He has been there forever. And because of your commitment, I am going to recommend to Mr. Labange that we recommend to the Park and Rec and Park Commission that road that leads up to the boys' camp be named Broken Arrow Lane. With that said, well, you've been there long enough. Nobody probably traveled that road more than you. I would like to ask Mr. Labange to say a few words, and then I'll present a couple of certificates, and then we'll go in the back and take some pictures.
Well, Mr. Weston, give Mr. Weston a big hand, because, Chief, it's so impressive. One of the joys in our jobs is when we see each other in our districts around the city and actually seeing the work that others do. And what Mr. Weston and his staff does, and his wonderful real chief right here, Mrs. Weston. Got to get that straight, Herb.
Yes.
It's great to experience this. And the joy of camp is the joy that the city gives the children. This presentation should continue to reinvigorate us to support the Park and Recs Department to give experience, not just summertime, but summer school break time. So I just want to stand to support you, and I want to suggest, instead of changing the name of the road, we should have the trailhead be named after Broken Arrow. Okay? Because that way the maps don't have to be changed, but everybody will know to go. I'm worried about the fire department when you get lost, Herb. Okay? So to meet, but we should have like the Charlie Turner Trailhead at Mount Hollywood, Mr. Muckery. We can have the Broken Arrow and a little story about dedication of all camp counselors. Thank you, Mr. Wells. Thank you, Broken Arrow.
Well, Mr. Labange, you are the chair of the committee, and I sit there with you, so I will follow your lead without pause. This camp means everything to our children. They come from poor families, and this is the only vacation that they have. It is a free camp. The children do not have to pay a dime. We raise the money, and we work in conjunction with Community Build and an organization called Project Save. Mr. Reyes, Mr. Alarcon, these kids, when they come to camp, they don't even have to bring clothes. We furnish every child with a bathing suit or swimming trunks. Every kid gets shorts. Every kid gets 3 T-shirts. Every kid gets a hat. Every kid gets a jacket. And when I go back in my district, there's not a week that goes by that I won't see a kid walking around with that jacket. It means everything to them. And to have professional counselors that get them to do the crazy things we do, the skits. And like I said, we had the professor from JPL. We also had, and they're here, I believe, we had Smokey the Bear. And the Smokey Bear, the Ranger, and the kids really love that. We do skits. Ox and I did what did I say? Yapuche? Ox. And we go through this, and at the end of it was you put your right foot in, you turn. But anyway, dumb things that just really made the kids love. Now, under normal circumstances, because you're the boss, Mr. Muckery, I would ask you to say something. But no, not this time. I'm going to ask Robin. I'm going to ask Wave. I'm going to ask my camp guardian angel to come by and say a few words. Please give a big round of applause to Wave.
Thank you so much, Chief. For the last 2 years, it's been a pleasure to serve CD10 and bringing those kids to camp. For many of the staff here, and as well as our general manager, we firmly believe that camp is a place where we create a lifetime of memories. And what happens to these kids at camp changes them for life. It is a life experience that they will never forget. And it is my pleasure and my honor, and I'm proud of my staff, and I'm proud of the volunteers that came and spent the 3 days with these kids to give them a lifetime experience. So thank you for allowing us to bring your kids to experience the joy of camps. And Rec and Parks, we really are an honor to help and assist you with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You've really been great. Mr. Muckery, come and say a couple words. A couple.
Actually, Robin said it all. The Department of Recreation and Parks is there to support communities, to build memories. Every one of our parks should be each community's cultural and community crossroads. Even these trying budget times, we're going to endeavor to put on quality programs to bring these kids out to look at Mars, to realize, to open up their horizons, to see that there is more to life in this city than an asphalt street. So I want to thank the council member here, Chief. It's normally my name, but I guess I'll give it to the...
For 3 days out of the year.
The Camp Weston really has been a dream of his, and we're just proud to be part of it. But really, everything goes to my staff. They do it all. I'm over here. I'm the face. I'm here. I'm arguing with you. I'm defending the budget. I'm trying to do things. But day in and day out, 365 days a year, it's the men and women behind me that put on the programs for you and your community. So thank you.
Thank you. And before I present the certificates, I would like to say one of the things that I really like to do is to try to have 50% of the kids be Latino, 50% of the kids African American, so that they can really get to know that they have so much more in common than the things that separates them. And we do very, very well. We do have some hassles from time to time, but they are very minimal. With that said...
Mr. Weston, Mr. Reyes, I'd like to comment.
Oh, okay. Mr. Reyes.
Chief, I just wanted to say thank you for doing this. And to John, thank you for your hard work and your staff. When you look at the number of kids that are in the city, and to get that life experience is truly a treasure. So I thank you on behalf of the parents and all the kids and the staff for doing what you do, because I keep saying this, but I won't stop repeating myself. You are the unsung heroes. A lot that you do that people don't recognize, but those kids are going to have that memory, and when they have that choice, they come to that crossroad, hopefully take the higher road because of that experience. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Weston, just one suggestion for Mr. LeBons. He always wanted to be a fireman. We could call him Chief Engineer, since he needs a nickname too.
I'll vote for that.
There you go.
I'll vote for that. Now, I'd like to call up 2 people in particular, the ones that I meet with and we plan everything. So I'm going to ask, and I've known Guru for 2 years. I didn't know your real name was Sharon. So I'm going to call you Guru. Where are you?
Right here.
And Robin, I didn't know her real name was Rob, but this is Wave, like an ocean wave.
Thank you.
And we can go in the back, and I believe there are certificates for everybody. So if you could follow Coyote. Come on, you kind of look a little bit like a coyote.
Thank you, Mr. Weston.
Thank you, members. Thank you.
Parks, great Camp Weston. Thank you. Our next presentation, Mr. Garcetti. Once again, Mr. Garcetti.
So 10-10-10, October 10th, 2010 is a day that will hopefully live in a good sense in infamy in our city. It was an amazing transformation of this city, an absolute game changer known as Ciclavia. And I know many of the folks that are here, we went through council districts 13, 1, 10, 9, 4, and 14. 10-4, good buddy, and 14. There was no beginning, no end, just 7.5 miles of extraordinary city celebration. And I want to thank the council members, all of us, who took the leap of faith, and the mayor, who helped bring this together based on something that for 2 years we've had constituents, dreamers, idealists, cyclists, walkers, skaters, people who wanted to see their city reborn. And we saw overnight what was possible, not by building a $500 million new park or by having to change a lot of things, but by simply closing down streets and saying, hey, we can all still own these streets, but we don't have to do it in our cars. For 7.5 miles, motorized vehicles were prohibited from East Hollywood to downtown, Boyle Heights, Westlake, MacArthur Park, into one long linear park. I had an extraordinary day. I saw many of you out there, many council deputies, city staff, but the one thing that I saw the most was people smiling, looking up at buildings and going, oh my God, I can't believe this is LA. En masse, Angelinos left their cars behind. And thanks to the leadership of our transportation chair, Bill Rosendahl, our great cycling advocates, Ed Reyes and Jose Huizar, Tom Labange, who for many years has led Ciclavia. Tom, you can come up here and join us.
Right here.
Okay, he's out here. Good. I'll make sure he's up here. I saw people playing dodgeball, doing yoga. I saw them playing in bands, picnicking. I saw people handing out water, sharing tamales. It was an amazing day. I even heard one couple use Ciclavia to get married, and their first honeymoon was walking the streets of LA.
Very good.
I got a chance to ride the route with a couple of friends, and I'll tell you it was amazing. As I said, a sea of smiles and goodwill. People came together, and folks who came from other parts of the city said, I want this in my neighborhood too. And so part of what this is today is to celebrate, to thank some of the folks who were part of this, to learn some of the early lessons, to come back. Mr. Rosendahl and I are introducing a motion that I hope everybody up here will help us second, to get a report, to look at the costs, and to start raising some money so we can get the sponsorships to continue doing this, to do this multiple times during the year, to take it maybe in smaller forms to other neighborhoods as well, and to spread this message of Ciclavia. It was more than just fun. It was cleaner air, it was better health, it was supporting our small businesses, and the joke that we had was, in year one, I remember when there was just one game of dodgeball, but we began to talk about, but 3 years later, and we would envision what this could become. It was the beginning of something truly revolutionary. With that, I'd like to turn over to Mr. Rosendahl, say some words to my other colleagues, and then we'll hear from some of the folks who analyzed and helped inspire Ciclavia.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I just want to thank you all right now for what your leadership was. You know, we are today talking about bicycles in a very positive way. In fact, Measure R puts millions of dollars into play over the next few years to accelerate bike paths and sharrows and other aspects of it. But when you take 7.5 miles and put the automobile on the side rather than up front, you create a whole new energy. We know wherever one of our farmers markets are, they are a mini event. We have it in Mar Vista. People walk from their homes a half a mile away and walk to that farmer's market. That is a huge, huge sensibility of getting out of the automobile. But to do 7.5 miles, I want to thank Paul Backstrom from my office. Paul, he bicycles all the time and he takes public transportation all the time, and he just had so much fun there that I can tell you that we're very proud of it and very pleased with it. This is a beginning. 10-10-10 is a wonderful magic number. It was a great moment to start all this, and I see this only getting bigger and better throughout the city and throughout the region. Thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank my colleagues and the advocates, the folks who never gave up. I remember Joe 10 years ago was working on my staff, and several others who came to work on bike, reorientated the office as to what could be. Now it's grown into an amazing regional response. It is an economic development tool, folks. Imagine folks coming from other parts of the city and experiencing neighborhoods they've never been in. Been able to walk down the streets that essentially they drove by on the freeway. They got off, they walked, they engaged the music, the great variety of foods, the restaurants. This is an economic development opportunity, but it's also about recognizing the great diversity of this city, this metropolis we call Los Angeles. As we move forward, I strongly believe that as other cities worldwide, Guadalajara, on their day in which they have a beautiful festival of the books, they shut down from 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, open up their major corridors, and they have a festival. They generate resources, people get to know each other, and it happens in a very cyclical fashion, pardon the pun, but we also know that this is something that we can embrace. I look forward to it, and I thank the pioneers who never gave up, the Bicycle Coalition, and everyone else that's been involved in this effort. Muchas gracias. Great. Thank you.
Councilmember Huizar.
Thank you very much. I'll keep it brief, but again, I want to thank the advocates. Incredible. This is an example of where the grassroots, the people, move a project forward and the government follows. I want to thank them for their work, and it shows that there are solutions out there if the people put their minds together to want to get something done. Incredible. And, you know, as my colleague, Councilmember Ed Reyes said, this has been done in other cities. In fact, we're copying other cities. But what better place to do it than in Los Angeles, that's known for its car culture, and that it's known for people saying, we can't get away from our cars. We did it. How many people showed up that day? 100,000 people?
60,000, we're saying.
60,000 people did get away from their cars that day, went to an event without cars, and rode their bicycles, walked, got to know the streets. I was out there at Hollenbach. It was an incredible sight to see, and I echo the best part for me, which was the smiling faces, a sea of smiling faces. Great job. I look forward to the next one. LA City should do more for bicycle use, and we can do more. Let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. And I want to thank my colleagues on the council, and really Joe Litton, who has a very special friend who whispered in his ear one day a very special idea. It's about celebrating the city. That's what Ciclavia is about. The work on the river connects the city all the way from your district, Mr. Zine, right where the Bell, Calabasas Creek come together and form the great Los Angeles River. We connect the city through celebration of cycling. I stand to congratulate everybody on this. Thank you very much. And remember what Mick Jagger said, if you're out at night and you're on your bike, make sure you wear white. Okay.
Thank you. And now we have Joe Linton, who I think we all know is one of the great angels in the city, whether it's on the LA River or whether it's bicycling. We're going to hear from him. We also have Adonia Lugo, Colleen Corcoran, and Stephen Villavaso, who have all been a great part of organizing this. Joe, come on forward.
All right, Joe. Big Joe. Well, I just want to say, first of all, that we invited the DOT and the LAPD to join us up here, and they're really the partners that made this event happen. I really want to thank the city family for coming out and keeping us safe and making the event go really smoothly. I also want to thank the mayor's office and the council for all the work you guys did to sponsor this and make it happen through your districts and working with your constituents. So we're the nonprofit that partnered with the city, but we're super grateful for all the work the city's done. So Bogota, Colombia does 80 miles every Sunday of streets open for people for walking, bicycling, skating, and we heard about that. We want to try it in Los Angeles, and last Sunday we had 60,000 people, young, old, families, young kids bicycling in the middle of Los Angeles, in downtown, in neighborhoods they've never been to. I want to show a really short video. It's about a minute long to give.
Hit it, Kenny.
Hit it, Kenny.
His name's not Kenny.
This is a historical day, but we got to do more of it. The city of LA has got to do a whole lot more to support bicycles, skates, and everything else that promotes more pedestrians on the sidewalk and streets. Thank you very much.
I think like every month. Every month. Every day.
Yeah. So just really quick, we want to talk a little bit about what the goals were and then about what the next steps for future Cicla is. So definitely we're about promoting alternative transportation. People rode their bikes, walked. They also took the metro in huge numbers to the event. The cars were packed on the trains, so it's really about giving people a chance to try those systems that have never done them before. Promoting health. We had families, we had two people talk about all these smiles. People were getting exercise. They didn't even know they were getting exercise because they were enjoying it so much. So it's about promoting businesses. There were the sidewalk cafes downtown, MacArthur Park were packed, Little Tokyo. So we're excited about bringing that business back into these core areas. And then lastly, it's about public space and bringing Angelinos together, experiencing our city, seeing each other, seeing our space, and just having that civic pride in our city. So the committee met last night. We're really excited to start working on this event for next year. We want to do 4 to 6 next year. We want to start in April with a similar route in Central LA and also move around to other parts of the city. So we're excited to work with the council and with great city departments. And I just want to thank all my colleagues and all of you for supporting a phenomenal event. That's really a game changer for Los Angeles. Thank you.
And we look forward to that. Get out to the San Fernando Valley, do Cicla Valle, maybe, or something. We can get out to the port and the harbor and do something down in Ms. Hahn's district, have a great time. Come back to Venice on the west side.
Orange line. We'll close the orange line for Sunday, Dennis. We'll go all the way out to your district from North Hollywood.
All right. And with that, we just want to congratulate the organizing committee. We certainly are going to look at multiple occasions next year. We're introducing a motion today. Folks sign on to it so we can have a formal report back from some of the different departments that were involved. But viva Cicla Via.
Viva!
Sherry, here we go, Sherry.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Mr. Alarcon?
Council members, as you know, once a month I do a child safety presentation inspired by my son who was killed in a car accident 23 years ago. And today the presentation is related to all of that. And it's related because the accident that took my son is the starting point for which we embarked on an endeavor to improve safety not only in the San Fernando Valley but throughout the Southern California area. What I'm speaking of is just last week we had the groundbreaking for the first pediatric trauma care center in the San Fernando Valley. This pediatric trauma care center was in fact named after my son Richie. It's called Richie's Pediatric Trauma Care Center, and it's at Northridge Hospital. So as of last Monday, the San Fernando Valley and communities in Simi Valley and Santa Clarita Valley and elsewhere will have access to a pediatric trauma care center that is closer, maybe critically closer than the existing pediatric trauma care centers at UCLA or Children's Hospital or General Hospital. So with that, I wanted to do a child safety presentation that focuses on Northridge Hospital. When we passed the legislation in 2006, we had no idea who was going to step forward on trying to establish a pediatric trauma care center. In fact, we didn't know if anybody would do it. Let me explain that the legislation that I'm speaking of was legislation to create a revenue stream to enable us to improve our trauma care system throughout the state of California, including pediatric trauma care, where 15% of the money was dedicated to pediatric trauma care, and that fund was named after my son as well. It's Richie's Fund. Well, the first recipient of Ritchie's Fund was Northridge Hospital. They received a $2 million grant for the specific purpose of establishing a pediatric trauma care center. But I have to tell you, the paperwork does not describe the passion that goes beyond that is behind the impetus for this effort. And I can tell you that Northridge Hospital is not just a bureaucratic hospital. It is a hospital that cares about the services it provides. And when I met with Mike Wall, the CEO of Northridge Hospital, he absolutely the passion was clear in his speaking to want to take care of this glitch in our system, this void in our system. And so he stepped forward and said, look, I don't know if we can make this happen, but I'm going to do everything in my power to try and make it happen because I think we so badly need this, and I think it will be a good fit at Northridge Hospital. Well, that was quite a while ago. But the long and the short of it is that, as I said, last Monday the Pediatric Trauma Care Center opened, and kids will no longer have to wait an extra amount of time before they can reach the trauma treatment center. And let me explain that there's a notion in trauma care that is called the golden hour. And the golden hour is a time with which if somebody has a severe traumatic injury, if they get to the trauma center, within that golden hour, they have a much higher rate of success. With children, they talk about a platinum standard of 1/2 hour. So basically what is occurring with a pediatric trauma care center is that the surgeons are committed to be at Northridge Hospital within 30 minutes to try and save a life or preserve a life or improve the quality of life in terms of the prognosis moving forward. And so I'm here to personally say thank you again to Northridge Hospital. We're absolutely dedicated to supporting them, even though they're not in my district. And let me apologize to Mr. Smith. He's not here today. This is in his district. He's been well aware of the work we've been doing in this regard. But first, let me say thank you to Northridge Hospital. Not just Mike Wall for his leadership, but also the surgical team, the president of the foundation for helping with the money, Brian Hamill, Dr. Richard Kang, who is representing the pediatric ICU. He is the medical director of pediatric ICU there now. And Dr. Stephen Hsu, who is absolutely critical. He is the director of the Pediatric Trauma Care Center. So with that, I would like to introduce Mike Wall, who really is not just the CEO. This is somebody who cares about the services in the community, cares about the quality of life in the San Fernando Valley, and most importantly, in this case, absolutely cares about the children who will be served and many who will see their lives saved as a result of this center. So with that, I'd like to present this certificate to Mike Wall, the president and CEO of Northridge Hospital, for creating the Ritchie's Pediatric Trauma Care Center.
Now, I feel blessed to be president and CEO of Northridge Hospital Medical Center because in my capacity, you have the opportunity to really do special things that make a difference in the lives of the people that come and receive your services. The Ritchie Pediatric Trauma Center would not have been a reality without the leadership of Councilman Richard Alarcon when he was a state senator. It would not have been possible without Senator Padilla extending legislation to keep the funding there for us. It would not have been possible without the County Board of Supervisors and our supervisor, County Supervisor Zev Yaroslavsky, to keep the funding. With that funding, it made it possible then for me to work with these wonderful doctors and nurses and clinicians to put the resources together to serve all of the community of San Fernando and beyond. I think Supervisor Yaroslavsky said it so well when he said, can you imagine the city of Philadelphia without having a pediatric trauma center? That's what it means to the Valley. So thank you so much, Richard, for your leadership.
Now the president of the Northridge Hospital Foundation, Brian Hamill.
Thank you, Councilman. Well, any hospital in any community is really a phenomenal asset. And with us being an adult trauma center, We open our doors to any adult, and now with the Pediatric Trauma Center, we are just so pleased and honored to be able to serve all age groups at Northridge Hospital. And as Mike Walso said so well, through the great leadership of Councilman Alicorn, the great team that we have behind us of doctors and surgeons, we're extremely excited about opening our doors to serve all people in our community. And thank you for this day here, this quick time here to be honored by for us, and I want to thank the councilman again for your leadership. Thank you.
And quickly, I'd like to present the doctors who are really the backbone of this whole opportunity. So first, Dr. Richard Kang, the medical director of the Pediatrics ICU.
Again, I'd like to thank Councilman Alicorn. When I became a physician, I took an oath to give the best care possible to the children of our community. And part of that mission, I came to Northridge with that in mind. With the Pediatric Trauma Care Center, we hope to strive to bring the best care possible to the children of the San Fernando Valley and the surrounding areas. I think our children deserve the best care, and we hope to strive for that. A few numbers in terms of pediatric trauma that have gone around. 1 in 4 children are involved in accidents or injury annually. Injury and trauma are the cause of 2/3 of deaths in children under 18 years of age. So out of all the causes of deaths combined, trauma doubles them. Councilman Alicorn talked about the golden hour. The most outrageous number when we reviewed all the data was that there are, in this country, about 17 million children that do not have access to a pediatric trauma care center within 60 minutes, that golden hour, that's critical. And I'm just happy that starting the Pediatric Trauma Care Center at Northridge could help start to reduce that number. Thank you.
And the person who's going to be in charge of the Pediatric Trauma Care Center is the medical director, Dr. Stephen Hsu.
Well, thank you, Council, for recognizing this important event that's occurring for the greater San Fernando Valley area and its 3 million residents. The creation of this Pediatric Trauma Center really is an essential service to the community. It's designed to help the community to save lives and to really be an asset to children that are traumatized. As Dr. King mentioned, pediatric trauma is the leading cause of death in children 1 year to 14 years of age. And it's the Council's recognition for these efforts that we really appreciate the focus on pediatric trauma and the increased resources required to care for those children. I appreciate the personal recognition, but really it's this focus on pediatric trauma that I appreciate the most, and I thank the Council as well as Councilman Alicorn for bringing that into range. Thank you.
There were a few people that I did want to recognize that were not mentioned. First of all, my Chief of Staff, Saeed Ali, having coming into the position of my Chief of Staff, 16 years of experience at the state capitol, was able to work through the bureaucracy, with the bureaucracy at the state level, to ensure that the appropriate rates of reimbursement were applied. He did that, by the way, with Assemblymember Blumenfield, who absolutely was a champion in this cause and worked directly with the agencies that established those rates. Zev Yaroslavsky was also a champion in this since the very beginning, but I also want to mention at the county 2 women. First of all, Carol Meyer, who was the Emergency Medical Services Director, or agency director when this process began, and absolutely believed we could make this happen, and encouraged Northridge by virtue of committing her partnership with them to go in this direction. And so without her help, this would not happen. She left that position, and Kathy Chittister is now the director same passion, same commitment, same resolve to make this happen. Without any of these pieces, this thing might have been in jeopardy, but all of these things came together as a true community. And the community should come together when it involves our kids. And so the parents of the San Fernando Valley and the greater San Fernando Valley, as was mentioned, can rest a little better knowing that should their child be afflicted with some kind of traumatic injury, that there is a response unit just minutes away at Northridge Hospital. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alicon. Congratulations, and thank you, Northridge Hospital, for that vital service for our youth. Okay, Mr. Clerk, we're now going to go into our official session. Please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Han, Weezer, Caress, Krikorian, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Wesson, Zion, Garcetti, 11 members present, and a quorum, Mr. President.
Okay, first item, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Wesson, second by Mr. Reyes.
Commendatory resolutions for approval, sir.
Mr. Krikorian, second by Mr. Koretz.
Mr. President, on the agenda, items 1 and 2 are items for which public hearings have been held. The committee report for item 2 has been submitted and distributed to council.
On 1 and 2, have been hearings on 1 and 2. Any special on 1 and 2? Open the roll.
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
Can we proceed?
Please do.
Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next items, please.
Items 3 through 10 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
3 to 10, Mr. Rosendahl, 3 special. 3 to 10, any other specials? Mr. Clerk, cards on what items?
We have cards on items 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10.
We will call those special. So there's no approval on those. Next group, please.
Sir, we should take a vote on that.
Which ones are we going to take a vote on? Just 8 and 9?
8 and 9.
All right, on 8 and 9, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
I'm sorry, I thought we had cards on all of them. Next group, please.
Mr. President, that would bring us to our special meeting. If you would like to hear that matter now.
We can hold the special meeting. Let's do public comment now. We'll hold the special and go to public comment. Public comment. Dr. Williams, public comment time, sir.
Good morning. Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno, Northeast LA. What happens tomorrow? We're going to start the budget for next year. What will it be? I don't know. I'd like to have the CAO, CLO, give another presentation as to what the budget deficits are projected to be for the next 5 years. That would be a good framework in which to start the budget process. How much money do we have? How much money are we going to get? Will the sheriff from the finance department be able to collect $500 million? We don't know. That's one of the problems. You're going to have 180 or more people here tomorrow to try to help the city. 180 people, 4 hours. Hey, that's not bad when you don't have to pay them anything. They are obligated to come, as I am. So what do we want? We want a fair hearing of shared sacrifices. Get everybody in the budget, not excluding anyone. Also provide for the pensions to be raised as part of a budget item so that we can have a kind of a placeholder as to how much we're going to allocate during the next 5 years. So let's have not only a budget for 2010-11, but let's have a budget for 2010 through 2015 and see the hole that we're digging for ourselves now. Thank you.
Michael, carry on.
Yes, my name is Michael Carrion. I was wondering if the acting president is aware that there's not a quorum here. People leave the room, that means you shouldn't be voting. Their names should be coming off the list. But I guess as acting president, he's not aware of that. So the votes you're taking don't count. Mrs. Hahn stated that there was domestic violence was about 35% of women. Those numbers are a lot higher for men. Just that in the Latino community, African American community, men don't report domestic violence as often as it happens. It's a lot higher. Being that I work in the field, I deal with men all the time who will not report it, but it happens all the time. Going back to some reports that we keep getting, a motion that was adopted on February 6th of 08, a motion that was adopted on February 13th of 08, a motion that was adopted on April 28th of 09, April 9th of 010. I always ask myself, when a council member shows up late, like Mr. Reyes did today at 10:16, how is it he holds up all these motions? Mr. Reyes sits on a staff where he controls things. I guess it's a power struggle. Mr. Rosenthal put in for the motion. Mr. Huizar, Mr. Labange, Mr. Huizar, Mr. Labange, Mr. Koretz, Mr. Krikorian, Mr. Labange. But these motions are just for you guys to pacify the public. Somebody take a stand and say, I don't care what Mr. Reyes' personal feelings are. We are going to take control of these motions and do something about it. He sits there with his ego so inflated that if it busts, all four walls will fall out here. Thank you.
And Mr. Clerk, for the record, please do a verbal roll call.
Can I just respond, Mr.
Ms. Hahn, hold on one second, please. Mr. Clerk, for the record, a verbal roll call, please.
Alarcon, Hahn, Huizar, Koretz, Krikorian, Labange, Reyes, Rosendahl, Wesson, Zion, Garcetti, 11 members present.
They're not saying here.
Thank you.
They didn't say here.
Ms. Hahn?
They're not here.
I just wanted to just say that when I gave that statistic, it was not about reports of domestic violence, and I do know that men obviously are victims of domestic violence, but the statistic was that 30% of all the women killed in the United States die at the hands of husbands or boyfriends. So that was the statistic.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mickey Jackson?
Good day, City Council. I'm Mickey Jackson. I'm with the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. Thank you. Thank you. We need all the fans we can get. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the recent outbreak in the adult industry of HIV. There's a couple of issues there. Film LA, which works with the city and the LAPD to issue permits, can suspend those permits. I don't know how many of you are all that familiar with how that works. I know that Councilmember Alarcon is very familiar, and I believe that Councilmember Garcetti is. The other thing you need to know is that the clinic AIM that the adult entertainment performers use is out of compliance with public health regulation. They are by law required to report HIV infections to the public health officer in the County of Los Angeles. They are the only clinic I know of who is allowed to stay open with no consequence for blatantly, publicly refusing to report that information. That failure endangers the public health, and it creates a situation whereby public health cannot do its job, which would mean public health should be investigating who this person has contacted, everything else. But AIM says no. Anyone else, I'll tell you, any other clinic would have been closed for this, or at least severely reprimanded. I don't know why that is. So we're coming to you to ask for your help in this situation. Condoms are the law, a federal law in this country that has been defined by Cal OSHA here, though it didn't really need to be. It is not a law that needs to be passed. It is the law of the nation. So they can't go to another state
and get away from that law. That's a specious thing. And we get about 100 requests a month for permits from the adult industry from LA. So we have a lot of major filming that we have a say over. Thank you.
Richard Robinson.
Mr. President, members, in 1948, Chiang Kai-shek and the ruling class in China was sent to the island of Quemoy. Sir, today that island is known as Taiwan. In the United States of America, there are people who are being victimized not only because they were forced to leave their country, but because they're not assimilated into the United States of America, the best country in the world. Little short guy named Robert Yu, 1991, opens the door to my room and walks upon the bed unannounced. He's putting cable for his television system, something he'd wanted to do for years, but was afraid to do because he didn't trust the people in the motel. He felt confident about my being at his establishment, so much so that he didn't really care. Wonderful Taiwanese guy. Today, he's still being victimized. In that motel, for some strange reason, the police, the Hollywood division of the Los Angeles Police Department, do not realize the need for security. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Brian Chase.
Thank you, council members. My name is Brian Chase, and I'm Assistant General Counsel with AIDS Healthcare Foundation. In 2004, there was an outbreak of HIV within this city's adult film industry. By the time the industry sorted things out for young people between the ages of 18 and 23 came down with HIV, which they will have for the rest of their lives. These cases were entirely preventable by 5-cent condoms, but this industry refuses to use condoms. Now, this industry receives permits to film from the city. The city delegates the authority to issue film permits to Film LA, and Film LA then has the police department issue the permits. This city has the authority to ask Film LA to stop issuing permits for the adult film industry until the industry starts protecting its workers. Just a few days ago, we found out that there's another outbreak of HIV within this industry. We don't know how many performers are going to be impacted because this industry is tight-lipped and refuses to communicate speedily with public health authorities as they should. Now, every film permit that is issued for an adult film within Los Angeles carries the caveat that interior and exterior nudity or sexual activity must not be visible or audible by the public. So Film LA can identify which permits are going to adult film producers. Since there is an ongoing public health crisis within this industry, and since this industry has proven incapable of policing itself and proven unwilling to comply with federal and state worker safety regulations that already require the use of condoms in the production of adult films, we ask that this council place a moratorium as soon as is possible on the issuance of any film permits for the producers of adult films until those producers come into compliance with the law. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John Walsh.
Thank you, John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org and live tweeting. We are tweeting live. This is a first for City Council. Go to Hollywood Dems, Hollywood and then the word DEMS. This is the first time we've had a live tweet here in the city. We would like to reiterate what we said. Brown's anonymous aide, there's no place in the media in the world who names the aide that called Miss Whitman a whore. His name is Stephen Glazer. He's the #1 manager of Brown's campaign. That's the name. Go check it. Check it out. Ask him. We also have a problem here. The elevators in this building are out of compliance. They have not been inspected, and the deadline was not met. So if you go out there and look, see what they did. They put stickers on Sunday, 10/10. There are stickers on all the elevators here, giving you a 90-day emergency extension. I want all the press and everybody here to know that you don't have enough people working to make your elevators safe. Now, if I'm lying, you go out there and look for that sticker. If the sticker isn't there, then I'm a psychotic liar. If the sticker is there, then you are endangering our lives. And John Walsh's psychotic ravings have a habit of becoming conventional wisdom very certain. Remember when I said at Prop 19 that it would cause the cartels wanted it? And then what happened? The president of Mexico said the same thing. So when John Walsh's psychotic ravings reach Mexico, Calderon, HollywoodHighlands.org. Email us at HollywoodDems@gmail.com. Thank you.
Arnold Sachs.
Good morning. Thank you. Arnold Sachs. Interesting news story. Mayor stumps for transit in Washington. And what makes that interesting is because just on the 13th, the City Council voted to support H.R. 2746. That was the Carnahan legislation that would allow public transit agencies to use a portion of their federal transit funding for operating expenses. So I'm just curious to know if under the mayor's 3010 plan, that would be considered federal funding. And therefore, that would mean that Metro would use some of that funding to run their operating expenses instead of for construction of the projects that they promise. Now, we know, based on Metro's past history, that that could never happen. Look at the wonderful projects they have before you. Then I'd like to just comment, not particularly at you, Ms. Hahn, but the remark you made regarding your meeting that you would bring government to San Pedro. Because in yesterday's newspaper, the city's attorney is going to close the San Pedro office. So government will be leaving San Pedro. And one other thing, in today's Daily Breeze, they did a commentary on some comedians. And this is what Jay Leno had to say. Jerry Brown has apologized to Meg Whitman after campaign aide called her a whore. Let me tell you, that was totally out of lines. Politicians don't become whores until after they're elected. And finally, you made a motion last week to nominate Tinkerbell for a star in Hollywood's Walk of Fame. I'm suggesting you nominate the Taylors from The Emperor's New Clothes for a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Walter
because that's fantasy also.
Bechtel. Mr. Bechtel, you're next up.
Morning. Yeah. I wanted to say something about your closed caption here. I noticed that you've been laying off a lot of people like Shannon who used to take care of the closed caption. But for some reason, we're still farming out our closed caption to Texas. How come we got so much money for the state of Texas and they can't even get the closed caption going on our own City Hall video here, but we got no money for the people of our city? That don't make any sense at all unless you got some kind of sweet deal going with Texas. Ever since Texas started printing all the money of the United States of America, And after they marched us all into a war that's turning out to be the stupidest thing we've ever done, they somehow think they can do anything. But closed captioning is not one of the things they can do. Also, I want to say that I don't know if this is in your jurisdiction about the election with Steve Cooley or not, but I will note that Steve Cooley keeps telling everybody that he is tough on crime. I think he should footnote that or caveat that, except for when it comes to mafia activities. He couldn't care less. I got stonewalled, and he told me to hit the road. It's not his jurisdiction. But he seems to have no problem taking jurisdiction in other cities and things that are nowhere near his jurisdiction. As long as the media gets a hold of it, that's when these prosecutors want to do something. And that goes all the way up to Jerry Brown, too. I mean, I've already said I was very disappointed about the fact he didn't want to do nothing about music, even though he was dissed by a musician. And there still has been no prosecution. They just keep saying, help is coming, you know, just like the check is in the mail. That means they're not going to do anything at all.
Thank you. Matt Dowd, our next speaker. Matt Dowd.
All right, thank you. There's so many things to talk about. First of all, shut down the adult industry. Excuse me, good luck. It's in Greg Smith's district. Most of it's up there. That's why it's got problems, because Greg Smith's one guy is way out of touch. You know, he's the guy who didn't think he had a pension problem, and he doesn't think the city's in any kind of financial problems. You know, the United States is like a $1 trillion budget deficit again this year. So here's what you need to do, and I don't want to waste a lot of time on your financial problems, because we tried to help you, and we were right about everything, and you ignored it. But you want to get billions of federal and state dollars and build a train line, a tunnel like they did in Switzerland from the port out to the west here, hundreds and thousands, maybe thousands of jobs. Transport all the goods out there, get all the trucks out of the city, relieve all the congestion problems. These are all things you could just go get that money. Go worry, that's something you could do. And build it. That's what Obama wants to do. Spend another $1 trillion. We might as well get it and start working and, relieve some of the problems. I'm Matt Dowd from Venice Beach. I've been here for 5 years. We had to file a federal case because you banned my original incense. You banned all incense off Venice Beach. I'm also a performer. You've seen my CDs. I've performed all over the world. And then you banned microphones. I couldn't even have a microphone. I got arrested for that. Now I'm getting back into my photography, so I'm bringing out, this is my first limited edition print, Bill's District, Venice, a beautiful sign. I want to loan this to Herb Wesson's office just for a little while because he appreciates good art, and I was a accredited photographer. This is one of my media passes from 1998. The whole of Australia, I was a media photographer for the Wallabies. Tom LeBon will tell you what that...
Next speaker, Noel Weiss. Thank you. Mr. Dowd. Mr. Weiss.
Council, good morning. I had actually a rhetorical question. I wonder in those 17 days, actually the 70 days, but the first 17 days when those miners in Chile were out there, they didn't know whether they were going to live or they were going to die. Do you think that they had any negative thoughts? Do you think they had any thoughts of hate? Do you think that they had any thoughts of anger? What got them through? Bottom line, thoughts of love, the power of love. And I think relative to this city, this council, if we can find a way, a little less love of power, a little more power of love, you know what? We'll be a long ways to where we got to go. In terms of leadership, Mr. Koretz, he's the problem today. Mr. Koretz and Mr. Krikorian signed an SB 1818 motion. There are hidden time bombs all over this city. Mr. Koretz ran as an agent of change. There is a property, an SB 1818 project on Swarthmore in Westwood. This project basically got rammed through. Again, where the city attorney is on this, I don't know. But I think that we basically have a problem. I asked Mr. Koretz's office, and I'm not representing these people, but I asked them to do a Rule 25. I'm sorry, at 2:45, because the council and the public need to know and understand what's going on. This guy's getting an extra 10 feet, although I'm told by his office that he's not now getting an extra 10 feet, but you know what? It's in the stuff. And I'm going to tell these people they're going to appeal the CEQA, and the CEQA is going to come before this council. So it's one way or another, this issue has to be confronted. And I think it's important, and Mr. Reyes is sitting still on the SB 1818 data. He will not have Mr. Krikorian's and Mr. Koretz's motion in his committee. This council is not working on behalf of the people. We need this data. You need this data. And I again call upon Mr. Reyes to respectfully, sir, please schedule Mr. Krikorian's motion, Mr. Koretz's motion, as well as, frankly, Jose Weezer's motion a year old, so that we can basically get this data and get a discussion. This council is not British Petroleum. We're not sticking our heads in the sand. It's time to move forward. This is your job. You're supposedly the guardians of the social trust.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Zumadog. Our final public speaker today, gentlemen.
Yes, time for the headliner, Uncle MC Zumadog, and everything I'll be talking about is available for you to read at lacitynews.com, and you should want to read. The blog is on fire due to this issue. I'm having record number of hits, and I will be hoping that Herb Wesson and Eric Garcetti pay specific attention. We're talking about the Los Angeles Housing Department and the Assistant General Manager, Roberto Adalpe. I'm demanding his immediate resignation, and I want council to get leverage. The shenanigans that is going on in the Housing Department under Roberto Adalpe, it must be stopped. You don't want this noise while you have an FBI investigation into the housing developers you do business with. We all know there's an FBI investigation into your LA housing developers, and I'm calling for the resignation of Roberto Adalpe. For this issue, City Attorney Tutanich, Controller Gruhl, I'd like to see an accounting. Several $1 million are unaccounted for out of the LA Housing Department fund. We're talking $7, $8, $9 million. Is it being pilfered, or is Mr. Adalpe deciding that he is waiving money for his cronies at a time when we need the money? Additionally, the conflict of interest allegations of Assistant General Manager Adalpe, who you are also hiring as an outreach contractor, who is gathering the information and then using his private law firm to put lawsuits against the property owners. Property owners don't like this guy. Tenants don't like this guy. There's no confidence in the department. They don't like working for him. He's petty. He's got to go because I'm going to put the pressure on. Eric Garcetti is not listening. I'd like to see an accounting in Eric Garcetti's district. Once rent escrow money has been signed off on for returning into the people's hands. What's the percentage of people who get their money refunded in Eric Garcetti's district once signed off by the city? I say it's very small. Get rid of Robert Adalpe today.
That completes public comment. Mr. Clerk, next item, please.
That brings us to item number 3, called special by Councilmember Rosendahl.
Well, Ms. Hahn, you had your button pushed. Did you have a comment, Ms. Hahn? A mistake. Okay. All right. Number 3, Mr. Rosendahl, there are cards. Would you like to hear the speakers first?
Sure, have the cards, sure.
All right. Number 3, Dr. Williams.
Dr. Clyde Williams, El Sereno, Northeast LA. What can we do about the situation? Maybe we could have the city attorney look for a pledge by every city council member that they will divulge and require that all donors divulge the source of all of their funds that come to each council member. And maybe we could have the same pledge, not by law, but by custom and tradition, from every candidate as to who's paying for their bills. That's all.
Thank you, Doctor. Arnold Sachs.
Thank you again, Arnold Sachs. And maybe we can renominate the Taylors from Emperor's New Clothes, and that will help to alleviate this fiasco with funding for elections. But my question here would be, and I don't know, hasn't come before the Supreme Court, but it certainly will, the don't ask, don't tell situation with with the military, and the fact that, in a way, how it pervades through politics, because anything that's wrong is a don't ask, don't tell situation in and of itself. Look at all the situations right here that we address in City Council on a daily basis, but we ask, but nobody tells because it's not on the agenda. So maybe there should be a change in the Brown Act, too.
Trent Large? Or Large? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It looked like an orange.
My bad for not spelling it, writing it clearly. Hi, Trent Lang, President of the California Clean Money Campaign. We are here to reluctantly support this particular motion to have the city attorney remove some of the language that conflicts with Citizens United. I think the outrageous amounts of spending in the current federal election by anonymous donors shows that we need to do everything we possibly can to strengthen our laws, both nationally and here in the city of Los Angeles. With that, I'd like to thank Councilmember Huizar, President Garcetti, and others who are supporting the Los Angeles Bill of Rights proposal to put 3 charter amendments that would help to direct this problem for the city of Los Angeles. This needs to be done. The California Clean Money Campaign will certainly be the first to strengthen our laws by ordinance as much as they can be consistent with the Supreme Court rulings. But there are other things that we can do already. Is the motion to by the Rules Committee to remove the trust fund cap on the current public financing system without any cost to the city, to make sure that there is enough funding in the public financing system and allow us to strengthen the system as we go forward and get funding. This is really important for the city, as this shows. We'd also like to urge 2 additional items for that charter amendment, technical amendments to the public financing law. One is to make sure that it does not require matching funds, so that we can apply grant funds. We'd like to ask the council direct the city attorney to do that, to make the public financing system as flexible as possible so council can make the best system going forward. And secondly, we'd also like to increase the fines for campaign finance violations. Currently, the fines are 3 times the amount violated. We think they should be raised to 5 times, and hope that you could also direct the attorney to include that language in the package for public financing. Thank you very much. This is a very important measure for the confidence of voters, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you. Matt Dowd.
Oh, yes, I'll take a minute on this. Just Tinkerbell was great, but this one is even more fantastic because it's an item where, we're bringing sections of the city charter into compliance with Supreme Court rulings because they're way out of compliance. So many things in the city. I just don't have the time to sue them all, but I'd love to sue your whole municipal code, every line. It's so vague. You're using them on us all the time. And so I'm happy for this. And it's going to go before the voters, seeing that it's going to be on the ballot, and you have to tell the voters, oh yeah, we have to fix stuff because we're non-compliant with federal law or state law, whatever.
John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Email us at HollywoodDems@gmail.com, and live twittering right now at HollywoodDems. I would like to thank the representative of the Clean Money Campaign. What this means is, as you know, the Supreme Court decided that corporations are people. So we have in America for the past over 200 years considered corporations businesses, but now they are people. So everything has to be changed concerning campaign contributions. That's what is going on here, and I echo everything that the Clean Money people said. And I'd just like to say hello to Texas and to the caption writer. And I want to know, you, the caption writer, are you an illegal alien, an undocumented worker, or are you an American? That's a joke. 1 minute.
Zuma dog.
Yeah, boy, it's interesting. You know, all the things you do that is not in compliance with the Supreme Court or federal court, you look the other way, you turn the blind eye, you just flat out do it anyway, even knowing you're wrong. But boy, when it comes to being able to take in as much campaign contribution money, better crack to it. Oh, let's make it a special hurry emergency ordinance. What this will do is allow people to give as much money as they want to these people without having to have any disclosure or accountability or responsibility. One thing I'd like to say you could amend to this, I'd like to see lobbyist badges. If you're a lobbyist and if you're a contributor, I'd like to see lobbyist badges because I'm concerned about an FBI investigation into ADI, and they are contributors, so they do fall under this umbrella of the agenda item. ADI, let's talk about them. Allegedly, the FBI is looking into them, and unallegedly, but for certain, Antonio Villaraigosa took campaign contributions. And this
Stay on target for the
on target, okay, to be in
item,
compliance with the Supreme Court ruling, I'd like to say any bribes that are taken from companies that are under FBI investigation should be given back. And I need more disclosure with this because what this will do is allow somebody like ADI, and the FBI investigation alleges that LA elected officials took bribes and illegal campaign contributions. So I am concerned that this will make it easier for people that are under FBI investigation that the city continues to do business with. Look at the Bonnie Brae affordable housing. The reason this city doesn't have any housing for the people is because you don't spend it on the housing. You take the money from the people, you take bribes, you take illegal campaign contributions, then the report comes out that you didn't spend it on the housing, then the FBI comes in.
Item.
You should all be taken out of
That's not the item. Mr. Rosendahl.
Yeah. Except for Zuma Dog's scream at the end, I agree with everything he said, to be honest with you. I think it's a joke. Already, we don't have health care for the American people, and it's real simple why we don't have it. It's because the insurance companies and the drug companies and the special interests have strangulated national health care for decades. So, you know, everybody should wear a uniform of where all their money came from and point out that they're not individuals working for the people, they're working for special interests. So I think the Supreme Court was wrong in what they did, and I'm voting no on this. How dare we get in compliance with the law that makes no sense? And I say to my clean money guy, I've been fighting clean money for 30 years. It's worse today than it's ever been. So nothing has really been done about clean money. So let's just vote no and tell the Supreme Court they're wrong.
Thank you. And my apologies to the chair of the committee, Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much. And I share your outrage, Mr. Rosendahl. I mean, we've seen the effect of it already. We've seen the unlimited funding of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, who's only spending on one side of all the races this year. We've seen money that we can't track. We've seen little small foundations that used to give $1,000 suddenly giving out tens of millions and not disclosing their donors. We've seen the steady collapse, I think, of much of what has been built up over decades. I do want to ask our city attorney to come forward, though, because as much as I would like to, Mr. Rosendahl, also feel good about a no vote, I think it's illegal for us to do so. And putting this forward, we have to, in order to be compliant, we need to change the Supreme Court, we need to make sure that there's a president, and we could stand on principle, but if it opens this up to a lawsuit in which we stood on principle and millions of our dollars go out the door that we have to take out of our libraries and our parks and other things, when we have, you know, the Clean Money campaign and others who are saying support this, as chair of the committee, I know they don't do that with any happiness or any smile, but sometimes we're called on to do the responsible thing. And I think the responsible thing, and I would say, colleagues, we have to, based on the advice of our city attorney, and I'm happy to have anybody grill city attorney and find out any reasons as to why not, and the Ethics Commission, it is a rare day when all the good government folks say, yes, we support doing this common cause, clean money, because they recognize the law the way it is, and we don't want to endanger everything else that we're doing and our city budget by voting not to put this on the ballot. Ms. Hahn raised a good question with me just now that I'll also ask, but tell us why we need to do this in your opinion, and second, what if the voters reject this and we're also out of compliance? Is this something we can change by ordinance so that we're not opening up ourselves to liability?
Good morning, council members. Deputy City Attorney Renee Stottle. As we've reported to you before, this proposal is for actually three different provisions. Two relate to the issue that we previously reported to you about regarding contribution limits to independent committees. As we reported to you, based on both the Supreme Court decision and a more recent Ninth Circuit decision that is directly in line with this, which is now very certain because the Supreme Court denied certs in the Long Beach case.
So a challenge to the Supreme Court decision has been turned down, so it doesn't look like...
In the Long Beach case, they had a very much the same provision that we have. It was challenged and it was struck by the Ninth Circuit. They sought to have it reviewed by the Supreme Court, which was denied. So there is really no question that these provisions in our city law now, both relating to city elections and LAUSD elections, are unconstitutional and can't be supported. In fact, we have been litigating a case involving that. We're in final
So just right now, we are being sued for being out of compliance right now?
Yes.
And what sorts of, we can't get into the dollar figures here, it's a confidential thing, but this doesn't just involve changes to the laws that are being asked for, but also financial considerations as well in that suit? Costs of attorneys and things that would have to come out of our general fund, et cetera?
Yes. Not only are they obviously seeking compliance with what they view the First Amendment requires, but when any of these challenges are brought, we are subject to attorney's fees and costs, and so that's what we're facing in that case and what we face in any of these cases. Without repealing these provisions, we face, even if we are not enforcing them, we face potential liability. We believe that we would be able to argue that we shouldn't have liability since we're not enforcing them, but yet that's still a possibility. In addition, leaving these provisions on the books, which are in our charter, which we cannot remove without a vote of the people, makes the law unclear for those who are seeking to comply with it. They may believe that they're still subject to these rules, even though we try to make very public that we're not enforcing them, or we may potentially face a challenge seeking to require us to enforce the rules. If we do put this on the ballot and the voters don't vote for it, it's our view that we still wouldn't enforce it because we believe it's unconstitutional. The third provision, which we haven't discussed here before, is in reference to a prior Supreme Court decision called Davis versus FEC, which struck down what was called the Millionaires Amendment at the federal level. When that case came down from the Supreme Court, we advised the Ethics Commission that they should not enforce a similar provision that we have in our charter, that we've had in our charter for a long time. It provides for essentially what the Supreme Court referred to as asymmetrical contribution limits, and they ruled that those kinds of limits and related disclosure requirements were unconstitutional.
Thank you. It is with a very heavy heart, colleagues, but I think a very clear choice here today that we either go out of compliance with a Supreme Court decision and open up the city to liability in the midst of our worst budget crisis, certainly in the last generation, or we can symbolically fight this and be out of compliance. Obviously, where the voters land, is not our doing, and we can try to continue not to enforce and be as close to compliant as possible. But I would ask you to follow the advice of our city attorney to make our displeasure as strong. The wrong place to organize against this is here on a vote. The right place to do that is with the Supreme Court, with future cases, with who you elect president, who can be who can nominate Supreme Court justices who are confirmed by a Senate. Those are the places where we can make a difference. We might feel good and then wonder a year later why we're paying money out in this very same horseshoe. But I'd ask for everybody's aye vote to put this on the ballot. Thank you.
Mr. Rosendahl.
I ask for a no vote, frankly, because our president has put new Supreme Court justices on. I'd like somebody to sue us and take it all the way to the Supreme Court. I've had enough of campaign money buying politicians. Corporations now buy everybody buys the politician. Politician doesn't work for the people if we allow this law to go unchallenged. I think we have an ethical requirement. Let them sue us. Take it to the Supreme Court. We got a new court. Maybe they're more enlightened than the last court, and they'll appreciate that the trouble with American democracy is just about destroyed, if not destroyed, by special monies that manipulate the entire process. I've had enough of this. So, frankly, I'm saying vote no.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. That matter is now before us for a vote. Colleagues, open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
8 ayes, 2 noes.
All right. The matter passes. Next item, please.
That brings us to item number 4, called Special for Cards.
Number 4, John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at Hollywood Highlands, HIGHLANDS.org, tweeting live from the meeting at Hollywood DEMS, DEMS. This is, if you look at this agenda item, it sounds like improvement to the intersection of Castelmare and Sunset Boulevard. Doesn't sound very, it sounds kind of boring. But when you look at it, where's the money coming from? The money's coming from the pipeline franchise revenue portion of Council District 11. So we're taking money that should be spent on pipeline safety, and incidentally, none of these issues would come up if I didn't pull them up. Even if you don't agree with me, this would have gone through as a consent item. You're taking monies and you may turn us into another San Bruno by taking the money away from pipeline safety. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Matt Dowd.
Oh, this is fully I'll waive this one. Thank you.
On this matter, open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next item, please.
That would be item 5, called Special for Cards.
Arnold Sachs.
Thank you.
Like that make the difference.
It does. Thank you. Good afternoon, Arnold Sachs. This $55 million for this event, compared to, maybe you might have read recently about the Art Walk in downtown LA, how that's run into some financial difficulties. So the budget for these events, how are they fantasized by? I mean, this is, according, I'm not sure, the attendance for this event, is there any kind of record? The attendance for the Art Walk was pegged around 20,000 people. The attendance for the celebration last month for the at LA Live was pegged about 20,000 people. You came up with $50,000. I'm trying to find out, how do you qualify? Art Walk, 20,000 people, there's no funding available. This Taste of Soul, and I'm not trying to be prejudiced here, 20,000, I don't know, will it be 20,000 people for this event? Hopefully there will be. We know that LA Live, they got money, $50,000, what was it, for the El Grito celebration that was open to the public. Well, isn't an art walk open to the public? Shouldn't that benefit for the funding? Again, the criteria for how the funding for these public events. Please be a little bit open-minded about that and let the public know. Thank you.
John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. 100% in favor of this event. Now, I went to the African marketplace. It was a few years ago. It was a gigantic lot. It was packed. It was hard even to walk around. And that was Saturday. The crowd was bigger, I understand, on Sunday. Yes, thousands and thousands of people show. And at least you're up front that this is an African-American event. You're up front. The bicycle people, let's face it, I see these bicycle groups, they're always 75 to 80% white guys. There are almost no women, there are almost no minorities. Europeans, bicycles are a European thing. But we don't hear anyone complaining about their events.
Mr. President, he's nowhere near the topic.
Wait a second. I am talking about the racial implications of this. And there are racial implications. Notice when I say anything nice about black people, this white mind, Dion O'Connell, attacks me. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Thank you. This matters. Mr. Wesson. Mr. Wesson, for the record.
For a point of clarification, the first year that this event was held, it had over 35,000 people. And then I think it averaged, the next time I think it was closer to 50. And I've heard reports that the last one was close to 60 or 70. So it has been a very successful event numbers-wise.
Hey, speak. I did put a card in.
There's no card. There may have been a missed number, but there's no card on 5. No other cards, I should say, on 5. Go ahead and speak and fill out a card.
Thank you. Yes, and, look, I prefer not to be here, but when I am here and I see things that bother me, it's just the language in here is a little loose, and that concerns me, because it says it's $55,000, right? It's chump change, and I'm all in favor of having a good, whatever, just party on, but it says 15,000 to fund any aspect of the Taste of Soul, and the next one's 40,000 to Mothers in Action or any other agency or organization as appropriate for the above purposes, and then make any technical corrections to effectuate the intent of the motion. So you could really be giving it to anybody. It says to fund any aspect not to exceed $55,000 to Mothers in Action or any other agency or organization. So it seems a little loose to me, and I don't like this kind of language, because, just give it to anyone and just to effectuate the intent.
All right, that matters now before us. Colleagues, open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Very well. Next item, please.
Item 6, called special for cards.
Number 6, Zuma Dog.
Oh my goodness, shady alert, shady alert, shady alert. Oh my gosh. Richard Alarcon, of course, that should say it all right out the bat. Right here, 4th of July celebration, wants to take $80,000 from the Lopez Canyon Landfill Community Trust Fund. Boy, what's the word trust doing in a Richard Alarcon item? But it says $80,000 from the Lopez Canyon Community Amenities Trust Fund to pay for fireworks. okay, $80,000. Because guess what? Not only to pay for this year's fireworks, but for last year's fireworks. We haven't paid for last year's fireworks yet. Now you want to take 80 grand out of this and blow it up in the air in a 20-minute presentation. I'm sorry, we don't have the money to shoot off in a wad up in the air for a 20-minute display this year if you haven't paid for last year's, and you got to take it out of a community fund. Now here's the thing. It says, it says approve it for the firework display or any other agency or organization as appropriate in the above amount for the above purpose subject. Okay, so here you're going to take Richard Alarcon, shouldn't even be council member, under 32 indictments, is definitely going to be stepping down, and then you have it say here, he wants to take money and any other agency or organization. Yeah, that's the biggest smoke and mirrors thing, okay? And it also says here, subject to the approval of the city attorney as to the legality if needed. I'm here to say the city attorney does need to check the legality as needed. It is needed. He's indicted 32 times by the district attorney. I understand it's serious charges. Me personally, I don't want to see Richard Alarcon do
Stay on focus of the item, please.
Okay, so here's the thing. Don't approve this because the guy's going to jail for 32
And lower your
crimes.
voice.
Don't
Thank
approve
you.
this. The council member's going to prison. Okay, there, I said it, Richard.
Stay on focus of the subject. Matt Dowd.
So are we on 6 or 7? Because that looks like
You're on
7.
6.
6.
You're on
Okay.
6.
Well, let me talk about this one then. Yeah, I say no to this one too. This is next year's 4th of July. 2011 4th of July celebration. He's trying to get the money out of you now. See, the indictments are for lying. It's for fraud. Really, it's just lying. I've never lied about where I lived. And I'm not running for anything. But, if it's part of the job and it's like an outright lie, I don't think they'd be prosecuting him to this extent if they didn't have
Stay on the subject of the fireworks show on July 4th.
The subject is...
That is the fireworks show.
The subject is, do we allow Richard Alarcon and Janice Hahn to run away with $30,000 for next year's 4th of July?
That's
and
the
why
question.
are we doing it now? And I say no.
That's the question. Thank you. Ms. Hahn, you have a comment on this matter?
Yes, certainly, Mr. Alarcon and myself are not running away with money that has been designated for the fireworks. A second on a motion means that you are allowing it to be brought forward for study and discussion. It's absolutely outrageous that they would think we're running away with this money. That is not true. That's a lie.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. The item is now before us for a vote, colleagues. Open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next item, please.
Item 7, called special for cards.
Mr. Walsh, number 7. Mr. Walsh passes number 7. Number 7, Zuma Dog.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see. Of course, something so shady would also have to be seconded by Janice Hahn. Oh, boy, it's so unbelievable that she could be doing anything shady with money. Oh, my gosh. So now, you know what?
Get back on the subject.
I have. Okay, so I just saw that more
The annual
money,
Pacoima Christmas Parade.
more money for the Lopez Canyon landfill, not only for 4th of July, but also for
The
Christmas.
Christmas Parade.
Another $15,000 for the Christmas parade in Alarcon's district. Of course, Hahn seconded it, and they want to do everything they can to take it from all angles with no accountability. So it says, please have the city attorney look into the legality of this, and again, to approve. So I want to, okay, council, I would like for them to have a discussion on this topic as to whether they should be approving all this money that a council member who's under indictment, who's going to be
Be on the
down,
subject
is
of
funneling out
the
everything.
Pacoima Christmas Parade. Indictment is not the question. The Christmas Parade is the question.
Public comment is I want council to discuss the legality of this when you got a criminal taking the money.
That is not the issue. Mr. Koretz.
Mr. Chair, not just dealing with this particular time, but we hear it over and over again. Do we have to have completely off-point character assassination as part of citizen comments, or do we have the ability to require them to stick to the topic?
Well, they're supposed to stay on the subject. Mr. City Attorney, will you comment on that, please?
The council president can have the discretion to have these speakers stick to the topic. And if they stray from the topic, they can be reminded, and if they continue, they would be deemed to be disrupting the meeting.
Well, the personal, impertinent, unduly repetitive, slanderous, or profane remarks are prohibited. Loud, threatening, personal, abusive language is prohibited. Disorderly conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the council meeting is prohibited. They're warned, and they're warned, and they're warned, and I get frustrated warning them over and over, and they continually do it.
Well, I would observe that this happens at virtually every council meeting, and we either should enforce that or shouldn't have it as our rules.
Well, they have been removed from council for a period of time. A motion is made that is then brought forward, and a term is given, and I have personally done that a number of times. So I would suggest if one of my colleagues wishes to do that, we can proceed in that direction. Our next speaker on number 7 is Matt Dowd.
Question 2.
Mr. Labange.
If it would be, if you had 1 minute public comment on these items, and in addition to that...
we can change that. But right now we're on 2. If we're going to change that, we can change it, but right now we're on 2. Let's finish this matter, number 7. We can discuss changing it to 1 minute at a later date. Matt Dowd, number 7.
Okay, well, see, now we've opened this up to a whole big discussion, about what you can and cannot say, but it's tough to draw a line, and when it's public comment about the performance of a councilman, Richard Alarcon in this case, if it's legal to talk about the performance of a councilman in your public comment, it's going to be tough for you guys to draw that line of what is slander and what's not. That's for a court.
The subject matter is the Christmas parade. Subject matter is the Christmas parade. That's the debate right now.
Okay, and I'm talking about Richard Alarcon's performance in his council district.
That is not the issue.
What's wrong with that?
That is not the issue.
In his district, and he's getting money out of the general fund.
The issue is the Christmas parade in Pacoima.
Please, get your head on the hook here.
The Christmas parade is the subject.
See, the city attorney's not getting on the hook.
This Christmas parade is the subject.
Exactly, and I'm against it because Richard Alarcon shouldn't be a councilman right here, and if he stays, he's going to have to put up with it.
Mr. Dowd, you're finished for the day. You're finished for the day, Mr. Dowd. Sergeant Arms, remove him from chambers. He's finished for the day. That item's before us. Open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item, please.
Item 10, called special for cards.
John Walsh, number 10.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Please visit us. We have $80,000 a month. Successful server requests $1 million a year. This is the Huizar Zion motion relative to initiating street vacation proceedings for Kittredge Street from approximately 375 feet westerly of Yolanda to its westerly terminus. We're 100% in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. That matters before us. Open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item, please.
Mr. President, would council like to recess the regular meeting and go into the special?
Yes, let's do that. Proceed, Alan.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Han, Huizar, Carrasco, Correa, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Wesson, Zion, Garcetti, 10 members present, and a quorum, Mr. President.
Very well. Number 11 on the special, we have 4 cards. We have a card from Zumadog, who's been removed, along with Matt Dowd. Mr. Walsh, number 11, the special meeting.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, emailing at HollywoodDems@gmail.com, and twittering at HollywoodDems. This is a float loan for the old Financial District Limited Partnership. We're in favor of it. And we also have a feeling that agent provocateurs come to these meetings, disrupt it, so you'll change the rules to limit my speaking. You know what an agent provocateur? People who haven't shown up for a year show up, and now you're going to cut my time because you're afraid of me. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Arnold Sachs.
As you want to say, Mr. President, pursuant to council rules, I'll speak my 2 minutes. But I thought pursuant to council rules, the council starts at 10 o'clock. Float a loan for the Old Financial District Limited Partnership. U.S. probes Southland developer. Federal authorities are probing ADI. Lots of cash and little scrutiny. Oh, this is the CRA. How far away from the tree do you think this nut of the Community Development Department falls when you compare it to the CRA? Lots of cash and little security. Floating a loan. Wimpy used to say, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. What's the record? Why does the Community Development Department need a loan? Where's the CRA in this fiasco? They're always willing to step up. They've been selling community property below market. Didn't that happen in Hollywood? What about the CRA project in South Central? The Marlton project? They went belly up. Lawsuits abounding. Float a loan indeed. Can you spare me a dime?
Zuma Dog.
No. I wasn't bad, y'all. I wasn't bad. Okay, we're talking about floating a loan again, which of course the city's in no shape to do that, but I would like to bring to attention, it says here, to float the escrow. I see the escrow fund here. We cannot secure any loans because, first of all, there's about $7, $8, $9, $10 million missing out of the housing department escrow fund.
You're off target back on the subject.
Housing and urban
loan.
Okay, we're talking about here, it says housing and urban, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. I do know that there was an FBI investigation into the HUD housing in this district, in the Bonnie Bray project in Eric Garcetti's district, and I know that Henry Cisneros. Okay, this matter, okay, do not float this loan, because due to the massive fraud, waste, and abuse that includes FBI investigations, we need to put a hold on putting all money out, because it's like Hotel California, baby. It never comes back in. All right, and we need an audit of all loans regarding this, regarding the housing and urban development that are currently outstanding, because conflicts of interest with the assistant GM of the housing department. Again,
it's about the loan. It's about a float loan.
Don't float the loan, y'all.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dennis. And I'd like to say it's such a pleasure to be back with such a symbiotic friendship relationship. I feel like I got Stockholm.
Get back on the subject.
All right, so again, it says $4.2 million loan for the HUD housing that I say we should not give due to FBI investigations into the HUD housing in the city of L.A., due to the fact that there are several $1 million missing out of the escrow account in the housing department with Roberto Adalpe, assistant general manager. And until this is all straightened out, I say we put a hold, because the problem is the money never comes back. We make loans, and then you see hundreds of millions of dollars into the billions never come back to the city. Now we're bankrupt. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Have a lovely weekend. And matters before us. Open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item, please.
Mr. President, do you wish to adjourn the special meeting and return to the regular?
Yes, let's do that.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Post and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Parks requests to be excused on October 22nd for city business. That meets council policy.
That's approved.
Council President Garcetti requests to leave at 11:30 on October 22nd for city business. That meets council policy.
That's approved.
Councilmember Smith requests to be excused on October 27 for city business. That meets council policy.
That's approved.
And Councilmember Hahn requests to be excused on December 7 and December 10 for city business. That meets council policy.
For Ms. Hahn, that is approved.
The desk is clear.
Announcements, colleagues. Mr. Rosendahl, announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mar Vista, which has come into its own, has a festival this Saturday, and it's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Mar Vista Park on Woodbine. It's going to be health information booths, food, arts and crafts, and a silent auction. Bring the family, come to Mar Vista Park, and have a fabulous day on Saturday. Also on Saturday, the Fall of I Chamber Orchestra, under the direction of Alexander Tristan, inaugurates its first concert season at 7:30 p.m. at Calvary Church at 701 Palisades Drive. Admission is free, but reservations are required. Please go to FALLOFAI.org. Also, quickly on Sunday, October the 17th, in memory of his mother and co-author of Betty Lou Young, local historian and photographer Randy Young will present a slideshow at 6 p.m. at Village Books at 1049 Swarthmore Avenue. Betty Lou, a longtime resident of Rustic Canyon who wrote books about the history of the Pacific Palisades and campaigned to save the Santa Monica Mountains and other open space for development, died July 1st at the age of 91. Her book with her son Randy, called Pacific Palisades, From the Mountains to the Sea, has sold more copies than any other book at the Village Book. So go there on Sunday if you're up in that part of the district. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, colleagues, we have lost the quorum. We'll finish announcements. There will be no adjourning motions today.
Adjournment?
Announcements. There's no adjourning motions. We have lost the quorum. I've been informed by the clerk that we lost the quorum. We lost the quorum. We will hold adjourning motions till Tuesday. Any announcements? If there are any announcements, we'll see if we can bring them back. Sergeant Arms is checking so we can reestablish the quorum. Meanwhile, any announcements, colleagues? Mr. Labange informs us that Hoover Dam has a new bridge. Directly relates to City of Los Angeles. Mr. Rosendahl.
Yeah, it's the Skirball Bridge is happening right now. There's been a lot of issues on the 405-101, but the good news is the contractor has done it ahead of schedule. The congestion is less now than what we thought it would be, and I want to thank Caltrans and MTA and DOT, my colleague Paul Koretz, and others who have played a role in this. It's still a problem, but it's getting better, and they move rather quickly on it.
And Mr. Rosendahl, you were on this morning's radio discussing a visit to Los Angeles and traffic congestion. You are the chair of transportation.
Well, I'll be happy to discuss that for a moment. The President of the United States is coming back to California. I have spoken to the regional director at the White House that handles California. They're well aware of the issues that happened the last time the President came, and so they're sensitive to the fact that when he comes out to campaign for people, he better not alienate the voters en route to whatever event it is. So my hope is that the Secret Service, the LAPD, and all the other responsible parties can work in such a way that the congestion doesn't get to the way it was last time. We've even suggested places he should go and the way he should get there, but for security purposes, we can't discuss it. Today, Friday, there is a coordinating meeting between the LAPD, Secret Service, and the White House, so there is that coordination with the hope that when the President does come, it doesn't cause more traffic issues than we already have. Thank you.
Thank you. We are 8 members, and I understand we are not going to be reestablishing the quorum. Mr. Labange?
The most important thing we all agree is the safety of the President of the United States, and hope they can work it out.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. We have lost the quorum. That concludes our meeting. We will return next Tuesday. Have a lovely weekend. Thank you.